Hey guys, what's up? This is Kurt here, and welcome to another episode of Audio Stew. Today we are going to be talking about a topic that I promised long ago, way back at the beginning of this show. That's right, today my sister Christina and I are talking about Disney princess movies and sort of the messages that they are portraying to young people. It was a super fun discussion, so I hope you will enjoy it, even if you're not necessarily into that thing. I found it really interesting. But yeah, it's pretty long, so let's just jump right in. Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to another episode of Audio Stew. Today, we have a first. This is the first time this has happened in the history of this show. We have a returning visitor. Now, I hear what you're saying. Kurt, you already had that once with Christina because there was 2 episodes of the Star Wars. So, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but that was actually just one conversation that I split into 2. So, that doesn't count.
Movie magic.
Yes. Oh, what is that? You hear another voice? That's right. It's Christina. She has returned for her triumphal return. It's the sequel. It's the greatest thing of all time. It's better than Mulan 2 even.
I hope so. I would really hope that I am better than Mulan 2, but you know what? If I could aspire to be like just as good as Mulan 2, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. And I hear what you guys are saying. I can hear you in the comment section because there's a lot of people in the comment section. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. The keyboards.
Yep. I hear what you're saying. You're saying, Kurt, why all the references to Mulan 2? Well, today we are going to be talking entirely about Mulan 2. That's right, you heard it here first.
It's the world's greatest movie. We're literally talking about everything but Mulan 2.
Yeah, actually, for real. That's kind of... for real, we have today the... I would say what you all have been asking for, but that would be a lie because no one has been asking for this. But I did say way back when that we were going to talk about Disney princesses sometime, and I think that's actually on the About page on my channel. That was one thing I said is on the channel, but it's actually not on there yet. So we're going to remedy that and actually...
For posterity's sake.
Yeah. So, yes, today we are doing the Disney princess discussion. I have swallowed my man card. I don't know if this makes me a better man or a worse man. I guess we'll see. But Christina, this time, I really truly think we are both extremely qualified to talk about this subject.
I think we're more qualified than I would be qualified to talk about anything else in the entire world, probably. Because I'm not qualified to talk about anything.
No, this time we put in the hard work.
True.
Last time when we talked about Star Wars, I mean, we watched a little bit of Solo because Christina hadn't seen it. We watched Revenge of the Sith. We didn't watch anything else. That's not like that today.
No, we watched it all.
We watched them all. Do you hear me, Internet? We watched them all. Most of them all.
Well,
we watched some of them all.
We'll put it like Kurt watched bits and pieces of them all. I have had years of training and experience for this single moment. This is
Christina's defining moment.
I don't think I'm ever going to do anything greater than this.
Mm-hmm. Christina and I both watched, I don't want to say every Disney princess movie. We watched all of them, like the major ones, right? We didn't. The only sequel we watched was Frozen 2.
Yes.
We didn't watch
Return
Little
Mermaid 2.
Jafar or whatever.
The 2
I didn't even know there was a
sequels.
third Aladdin until we started doing this.
Yeah.
You've seen all of them all the way through, correct? Okay. I hadn't. Like Snow White, obviously I'd seen bits and clips just throughout my life, but I'd never actually sat down and watched it before. So we watched like kind of the speed version of like mostly the older ones. So like Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella. Others we did watch all the way through. So I hadn't seen Tangled in years, and I remember I loved that movie when I was younger. So we watched it again all the way through. It was the first time I saw The Princess and the Frog all the way through, and that was a good one. Same with Brave. I hadn't seen like any of Brave, I don't think.
Yeah, I feel like that one doesn't get the credit it deserves.
Well, is that one the only Pixar?
It's the only Pixar.
That's the only Pixar princess.
Per Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Yes. Okay.
Scene.
That's true. Most of the time when I do these, I have an outline, like a pretty good outline, I would say, or like questions I want to ask people. And that's a lot of times because I'm doing more of like an interview than I am necessarily like a back and forth conversation. Like it's definitely a conversation. It's just more structured. Today we are going to try and wing it, which means I probably have to do a lot more editing, but that's fine, I guess.
Basically, it's two people in quarantine sitting together, coming up with things to talk about.
Yeah, sure, something like that. Christina, what was the outline that you wrote on your hand?
Talk, princesses, love, good, bad messages.
Okay, wait, is the question mark?
Question mark. Just bad messages or messages, question mark. I'm not quite sure. Oh, okay.
Gotcha. We want to look at the messages that are being shown to young girls, I think. Because if I'm not mistaken, Disney princesses are like most popular with young girls. I don't have the data, but I don't have the analytics up, but I'm gonna bet that Disney princesses are most popular between girls of the age of like 3 to 8 or something like that. Probably. Something like that. Which when you think about it is actually like a really vulnerable time in your life, I would say, like, because you're sheltered by your parents a lot, but it's kind of when you're figuring out the world, and I think in that time what you are told is probably really important, and it will shape how you kind of live your life in a lot of ways. So for parents especially, I think it makes sense to like actually know what like your girls are watching. Like, is this something you support, or is this like a bunch of trash that they're being fed? What's the dealio?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, between the ages of 3 and 8 or 3 or 10, those are the years before you become a teenager. And once you're a teenager, you're mostly making decisions on your own now. Like, there's not as much as that parental role, so like those are more important than people realize. Like, it's kind of like that's it almost.
Well, and the all of the princesses are what, like 16 to...
I think Jasmine is supposedly the youngest according to the Disney movies. I think she's about 14.
Really?
Okay. And Elsa, well, at least in Frozen, I think she's supposed to be about 21. Okay. So most of the time, like if you're watching a movie or reading a book and it's geared towards younger people, usually the characters they're portraying are probably 2, 4, 6 years older than the actual kids watching them or reading the book. So it's supposed to be like a guideline, like this is what your future is going to look like. By this age, this is what's going to happen, and this is what you should expect. Especially in terms of romance and in the ways you interact with family and the people around you and I guess the world around you, depending on how broad we go with the different movies. Yeah.
Obviously, no one, like you said, is the same age as these young girls. They're all like, if you're that young of a girl, you probably think this person is like, oh, they're so old. Like, this is like the coolest person in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like if you had like an older sister or something, you'd be like, oh, she's like my older sister, but she's on the TV or something like that.
But way better because there's magic involved.
Yeah, yeah. My sister can't do magic.
Yeah.
Let's go back to like the beginning with the princess movies. We should probably start with like where Disney starts with them, because the first one is Snow White. Obviously, it was a very influential movie, just like technically impressive in the animations and stuff like that. I don't really think the messages to young girls was like a big issue for them. I think they were more concerned with telling a coherent story using like these really impressive things. Like I don't think they were like, all right guys, young girls, they need to know this. I think they were like, oh my word, how are we gonna make Dopey's nose look right? This is
I mean, you could bash them all you want for showing a very like women need to belong in the kitchen, or like girls can only do this, like, and maybe to some extent that is a reflection of the culture of the time and the expectations for women at the time, but I don't think there is as much of the film theory and thought about plot as there is in modern day princess movies. But at the same time, it's still clear that these movies, I think, have an effect on the people that continue to watch them. Like, just because something wasn't intended to be a bad message for people doesn't mean it can't be a bad message for people.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Because, like, I don't know many, like, to me, going back and watching Snow White was pretty boring. Yeah. Like, I don't know why most girls would want to watch Snow White. I don't have the data to say that people are still actually watching the movie Snow White, but if you get to Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty, that's what are movies that people are still definitely watching. So Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, and Cinderella
have very similar themes.
Yeah. They're all, like, those are the earliest ones. And I don't think any of them, like, in general, what I noticed was, like, the newer they are, the more stronger of, like, a plot and a point, like, the movies had. So, like, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty are pretty cut and dry. Like, oh, there's a girl and she's pretty and she can sing, and then there's a prince and he saves her, and there you go. There's not a lot to it. So Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, I don't really think contribute much of anything positive. Like, you could just say, oh, it's just a story. Like, it's like a fairy tale. There's nothing, like, it's just what's the word? It's like it's just like filler. It's cotton candy. That's what I'm looking for. It's just you get a taste and there's nothing to it though. Like,
yeah. But I think in actuality, it's one of those things that just becomes a part of the culture, and you just kind of accept those themes because they become kind of like stereotypical themes in movies, and then something that you make comedy out of because it's just such a big part of the culture. And then you probably counteract against that because that's antiquated or whatever. But yeah, the themes that they're generally giving in these movies is kind of like, yeah, there's maybe an evil lady that's like coming after these girls, and those first three movies especially, and I'm not quite sure what that has to do with anything other than like maybe women just generally not getting along or like putting each other down, if you wanted to get deep into that. But basically these girls are not free, but they also don't have like any experience with the real world at all. And then their only experience with the outside world is when this prince comes. And I mean, it makes sense if you have no experience with the outside world, that like, oh, this person comes along and they like want to take care of you. But there's nothing about like forming a relationship, or like there's definitely no safety protocols going on. It's just like this prince comes along and he kisses these women without consent at all, which is, you know, pretty iffy. They're unconscious. That's problematic. And then they're like, oh, you're the stranger person that saved me, and now I will ride off with you into the sunset, and I am a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah, we were laughing. Okay, so you're totally right, because those first movies, they're super cut and dry, and you could just chalk it up to, oh, it's a fairy tale. Like, it's just fluff. There's nothing to it. But if you were to like put this in a modern, like The Example or something, and look at what's going on, it's like, oh, that's not okay.
That would be like a horror movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
what is Disney movie in the past is essentially like 50 Shades of Grey from the current point of view. If you look at it, like, honestly though, it's kind of like there's this, or like Twilight, where it's like there's just random dude that kind of shows up. Like, I feel like there's a lot of something that influenced those ideas almost.
They're definitely more sketchy, where it's just, and that obviously is a very, like I said, I personally don't know why most girls would watch Snow White or Sleeping Beauty. I haven't mentioned Cinderella because I think Cinderella's a little bit different. Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, just because I think they're kind of boring. Like, I'm sorry if you're a fan of it. I think it's boring. But like, if you did go and watch it, it'd be like, I don't know about this. Like, and I obviously, you know, if you're not taking the time in the plot to show at least some development, you are obviously limited. It's a movie. You only have, in these cases, like an hour and a half to show a progression of point A to point B in a relationship, right? But with Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, there is none of that. It's all just, this dude appears, all right, let's go for it. Like, what? Like, yeah, it's literally the worst message you could be telling young girls. It's just like, yep, you know, see, just that sketchy hot guy who just came up to you, he's probably fine. Like,
I also think it's really problematic that in the movies, the girls don't actually, like, do
anything. Don't do
they
anything.
Have no power at all whatsoever. Not to, like, women need to have all of the power, etc. But there's no power at all. Like, they have no control over their lives. And it's kind of, they're, like, sad stories, honestly. Like, I think that probably goes back to, like, their original fairy tale roots or whatever. But that's a different discussion because nobody really thinks about that anymore.
Yeah, a lot of these, or maybe even all of them,
have roots in a...
Well, all of them have roots in, like, something, but some of them have direct correlations with old, like, Grimm's fairy tales and things like that.
Which are, in fact, Grimm with one N.
Yes. Cinderella, though, I did like how there was a little... She's the only one, like, that actually has personality out of them. And I, like, barring the fact that she falls in love with a prince and, like, they get married, like, right away or something. Like, they have one night out, you know, and a dance, and let's go for it, you know? Yes. Ignoring the romance side of that one, I do like Cinderella because of, not for the romance, like, messages, but there was something to do with, like, having a dream, kind of, and, like, also, like, enduring in, like, really rotten circumstances.
Yeah, I think it came out in the 50s, so I feel like it's a very, like, post-World War II kind of idea of, like, going through really terrible circumstances and not having any control, but within that, still working hard and not giving up on hope. And I mean, she has her stepmother and her stepsisters, and she doesn't give up on life. She's not, I don't know. She doesn't feel like a dainty human that, I mean, she doesn't have any control necessarily of what's going on in her situation, but she also still isn't just sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at having a stepmother and like half sisters and stuff, and how like they're just evil people, and it's like, okay, well,
there's a lot to
maybe that's not necessarily like, because I can imagine like a scenario. This is somewhat far-fetched, but not like entirely. Like if you were a young girl and you grew up watching Cinderella, and then for whatever reason, like your mom passed away, or you know your parents had a divorce or something like that, and you have like enter stepmom with her daughters, and Cinderella's in the back of your head. Like, obviously you could work out those relationships and stuff, but it still seems like not the greatest thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just that young and naive, like you're ignorant, you don't know what like a stepsister or a stepmother is like, then I don't know.
It's true that usually in movies when two families come together, it's never like this smooth, happy transition. There's always somebody that's like evil or whatever.
Which I don't have personal like experience with that direct, but like I can imagine it is difficult, like to be in that scenario. But
coming at it with the angle of like you have no hope. Clearly they're gonna be evil. Like that's not the perspective you want.
Yeah. So it's this, like I said, all of these movies, not all of them, a lot of them have things that are like, yeah, I can get that, and then other things that are like, what you doing there, Disney? That's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind Cinderella, but I mean, I also think I'm partially biased because that was like one of my favorite movies growing up was Cinderella, and I watched it a lot. I also felt like I kind of identified with her a lot of the time when I went through like not having many friends or moving or difficult circumstances. I liked watching that movie because I feel like subconsciously I kind of like identified with like, oh, not having control over your situation. And I think that in that way, Cinderella is a very positive role model because she still treats people very kindly and gives respect to people who do not treat her kindly. And she doesn't give up on hoping for a better future. And she doesn't sit around throwing a pity party either or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane, like, when you think about it. Like, her stepmom gives her, like, so much crap. It's like, all right, Cinderella, today you must sweep the entire everything and wash the tapestry that you just washed yesterday, and don't forget the cat, and all these things. And then, but she just, like, she takes it in stride. Like, on one hand, there's kind of a, like, oh, come on, Cinderella, like, stick up for yourself a little bit. But then she's really not in a great position to do that. So being able to still, a bit extreme, but, like, show love to your enemies, like, it's even there. I think Cinderella's all right.
Yeah. I also think there's a lot of extra things in the movie that people don't remember. Like, so much of the movie is, like, about the mice and their funny little things that they do, and about the prince's dad, and he's just kind of hilarious and weird and strange. So I think they did a better job of balancing out that movie in a very Disney way, where there's something serious going on, but there's, like, the humor around it to make it more kid-friendly or more interesting to children. It's a very Disney movie in terms of, like, a classic Disney movie.
Yeah, I would argue that, like, Cinderella is a much better representation of like the classic, Disney dreams come true type thing, where this is who Disney should be versus like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, which I get. Those were, actually Sleeping Beauty came after Cinderella, right?
Yeah. Sleeping
but
Beauty
Snow White is like, their first movie, but let's keep moving forward. We got like the 80s and the 90s, which are kind of where like the 2D art style like really hits its peak. So that would be movies like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Pocahontas, Mulan, and The Little Mermaid. I think that's all of them. And this is when things really start to you can definitely see the messages starting to come out.
There's a lot of diversity between these movies.
Yeah.
But still kind of, I don't know. There's a basic princess format, but they kind of tend to diverge depending on the movie.
Yeah. This time, now plot has a much bigger impact on what's going on, I think. We also start to see like a lot more family dynamics. Like we talked about that in a little bit in Cinderella, but like Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, like their family's not really.
They're not really a part of the movie.
They're not really part of the movie. Like not to any significant degree. The one thing that I want to talk about, which is really important and kind of sad, I think, is all the father figures in most of these movies, because they all are terrible.
For the most part.
No, okay, rephrased. Yes, not all of them. Mulan is the direct opposite.
Yes.
I don't know about Pocahontas because we didn't.
Her father is very similar to like Triton in The Little Mermaid, where he's a very powerful person that has like, you need to do this sort of thing.
Okay, rephrased. We're gonna split it in half. Half the father figures are terrible. The other half are pretty good. So let's go with there. So the ones that are awful. Well, okay, awful is kind of strong. The ones that are pretty bad. I would say Aladdin's pretty bad. Beauty and the Beast isn't great. Actually, are those the only two? Because I think I only mentioned 5 movies.
It depends on how you look at it, I suppose.
And when I say like they're pretty bad, I don't necessarily mean that they're like bad fathers, I guess. Like I don't think Jasmine's father, whatever his name is, I think he's a bit kooky. I don't think he's really that great.
I think that, definitely Jasmine's dad and Belle's dad are pretty much the exact same person. You have a very short, chubby man who's very eccentric and not necessarily like a dad. Like it's more like the kids are kind of taking care of them. I
don't like it, and this is partially because, I'm just a guy, and so I probably relate a little bit more to it. Because like they're portraying their dads to be such bumbling idiots, where that's a really terrible message to be telling their daughters.
Yeah.
Like, so if you were to see, your young girl, and you see on the screen, oh, Belle's dad is not all that great. He's kind of, like you said, he's like this chubby, short guy who's kind of an idiot. He's kind of stupid. He gets, like...
Not to mention what that says about chubby, short dudes.
Yeah,
too. Like,
come on!
Like, that's just not...
Fat people are not automatically
putting
stupid.
A lot of undesirable traits into a person that you don't want to be seen as an undesirable person.
Yes, yeah. And the problem with it, I guess what I'm trying to say is the problem is that they're portraying it where the daughter is going to be smarter than the father. Which, I'm not saying like young girls are like never wrong. Or like, or wait, what am I trying to... Did I word that right? I'm not saying young girls are always wrong. That's what I was getting for. Opposite. But in general, your father has 20, 30, 40 years of life experience on you. He knows what he's talking about. And there are definitely bad dads. I get that. But, like, portraying them as dads are dumb, like, you know, that's just, I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the thought process is there. And again, I don't think it was maybe like a conscious decision either, but it still kind of comes at it from the angle of like, their dads are so dumb that they're kind of like falling again for the first guy that they meet that has any sort of like more of a stronger presence, or like they're more confident in themselves. And so like there's still like this, I don't know, it's a weird circle.
Well, yeah, and when you think about it, they're not only are they dumb, but like if you were to look at the dads, they want their daughters to get married. I know in Aladdin, is that the same in Beauty and the Beast?
Yeah.
Okay. So in Aladdin, it's, you know, it's like the law or something where Jasmine reaches a certain age and so she needs to get married, right? And so he's just so desperate where it's like every guy who comes along, Jasmine rejects, and he's like, oh, like, what was wrong with that guy? Like, he would have been fine. Mm-hmm. And then in Beauty and the Beast, I think
like, what's wrong with Gaston?
Yeah, Gaston. And he's like, oh, he's a strong, handsome guy. Like, go for it.
Yeah.
That's the advice that her father is giving her. Where, in this case, Belle is definitely right. Gaston is not a great guy. Like, he's a little bit obsessive, I would say. He's got
a major issue.
He doesn't have... Isn't it where he's like, I don't care about Belle's personality?
No, he's like... Girls don't need to read books. Doesn't matter like what's inside their brains or anything like that. It's just like, we're gonna get married. You're gonna give me 3 handsome sons or something like. She's the only one here that's as beautiful as I am, basically. Gaston got that confidence.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a terrible thing where Gaston is obviously not the best suitor for Belle, and yet Belle's father supports it.
And then you have the flip side of that, where you have like Pocahontas' dad or Ariel's dad, who are not bad fathers, but there's this kind of thing that like they... Actually, Pocahontas' dad kind of wants her to marry this one dude too. But I think it's kind of like, you should do this and you should not do this. And they always do the thing that they're told not to do. Mm-hmm. And those people are kind of portrayed as like, they're angry and they're like, don't know what they're saying. And they're being too restrictive, etc., etc. But if you look at either of the movies, the dads were right in the end. And I don't think the movies highlight that fact. Like... Things somehow magically turn out okay, but it's not because of what the girls did. It's in spite of what the girls did. Yeah, no, both... I won't speak for Pocahontas as much, because I don't know that one as well. Like I said, we did our research, but like not like super extensive. Not on all of them. Pocahontas, I mostly just watched the Colors of the Wind scene and then called it good. But like... In The Little Mermaid, it's her dad tells her like not to go to the surface, right? Isn't that what is like? There's danger out there or something. I don't know exactly. And then that's exactly what she wants to do. She even makes a deal with the devil or whatever. She's practically the devil, Ursula. She's terrifying. And then now she's got legs, something like that. I don't really know. It's a movie. But in the end, Ariel and the prince guy get married, right? Mm-hmm. That's how that one ends. She almost dies, though.
Yeah, because there's something about where...
she trades...
You explain it.
She trades her voice for legs, and then she has a certain amount of time to make the prince fall in love with her. But in the meantime, the evil witch, Ursula... has stolen her voice, and then she disguises herself as a beautiful girl. And so the prince only knows Ariel by her voice, because he saved her, but he was kind of unconscious or something like that. And so he hears this other girl's voice, and he's like, oh, that must be the person that saved me. And so he almost marries this other girl, and because of that, because she can't make him fall in love with her, she's gonna die. At least that's especially the way it is in the actual storyline of the original book, like little short story. In the book, she actually does die.
Oh.
Which, that's gruesome. Or she will almost die, but then her sisters save her, something like that.
Okay.
But, yeah, but somehow it all always works out in the end, and the dads are always like, oh, I'm glad you're okay, and you found love, or not so much with Pocahontas, because that is very... Pocahontas has other issues in it, with historical facts and the way that it portrays certain types of people. I appreciate the effort, Disney, but no thank you. I just there's some issues with that I think they corrected maybe when they made like The Princess of the Frog, where it's like a more realistic time setting than whatever they were trying to do with Pocahontas.
Yeah, Pocahontas has some stuff about like the love of nature, I think is that the main theme?
That's kind of one of the themes, which isn't a terrible thing, or I think completely incorrect for what is kind of going on with the conflict there in that actual situation. But yeah, that's different than other Disney princess movies that don't necessarily have some sort of a religion portrayed, but kind of with Pocahontas and Mulan, there is some religious aspects that are not like Christianity. It's something else, which I guess is informative. But I'm sure a lot of parents would have like, oh, this is not like a typical Disney princess movie. There's other things going on here.
Yeah, I figured we should at least mention that about Pocahontas, because I don't think we'll talk about it much.
No,
but,
probably not.
Again, going back to the fathers, I don't... Like, that's better. It's like, all right, he was right in the end. Like, you literally probably should have died, but you didn't. Like, it worked out. And then he switches to, like, I'm just so glad for you that it worked out in the end, because otherwise I would have been really upset, like, that you died. Like,
basically, yeah.
And you're right. It's sad that that's not highlighted more, because I think that's better than a bumbling idiot to at least be, he was actually right, even if he, like, changed his mind, quote unquote. Like, he probably should have just grounded her instead. But
yeah. Also, can we talk about how I think the princes in the movies before these ones did not have like any personality at all. But in these ones, all the princes do have a personality, and they're all not the most desirable personalities. Like, can we talk about the Beast? Like, there's some issues. Like, John Smith was not a great dude, not in the movie, and certainly not in real life. That dude had issues.
Can we... Okay, hang on. I want to talk about Mulan first.
Yes, Mulan.
Because she's, I think, has the best father figure out of all the movies. Well, actually...
All the movies at this point.
Yeah, at this point for sure.
About.
And then we'll switch to some of the suitors. Mulan, I love. Mulan's a great movie. I don't think there's anything in Mulan other than... maybe a little bit odd spiritualism with, your ancestors and stuff like that. And
that's kind of at the parents' discretion,
though,
of like, this is a reality of the culture.
That is what culture, maybe not exactly, but it's giving you the right idea as far as what culture is like in China. But I love Mulan. I think everything else in Mulan is... Even that, like, that's fine. It's just, that's their culture. At least they're portraying it somewhat accurately. You're getting some perspective. But everything else in Mulan, I think, is amazing. And talking specifically about her dad, because that's what we're talking about right now. He's old.
He's old, and he has a war injury.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it is. Okay. Basically, the premise of Mulan is... the Huns are invading China, and so we need every like family to send one male soldier to come fight for us, right? And in Mulan's family, the only person who would be eligible to do that is her father, who is like what, in his 60s probably. He has a major limp, like he's been in the like a past war. He has the injury you talked about, and he's willing to still go to war. If he goes to war, he will die.
Yeah.
It's pretty much guaranteed he will die if he goes to war. And yet he's willing to do that. I think that is really a great message to be spreading to young girls, is that this is what a selfless father looks like, who in spite of everything is willing to die for his family, die for his country. Like,
and his actions after Mulan goes out there, he doesn't report it to his country because he knows that Mulan is going to be killed or something. There's going to be a serious punishment for her. And he's kind of putting his own child above the fact that he could get in trouble for all of this too. But he respects her decision to a certain extent, and the end of the movie.
Yeah, what happens at the end? That's
the end of the movie, Mulan comes back, and he's not. I think Mulan has this expectation that her dad's going to be upset with her for what she did, and he welcomes her with open arms. And there's another point in the movie too where Mulan kind of feels like a failure because she's not living up to the expectations of. She's not this like perfectly poised woman. She's not really going to find her suitor in the traditional way or like bring honor to her family. Like that's all she wants to do, but she's not figuring out how to do that quite yet. And so her dad comes to her and he's like, you know, it's okay. Like it's okay if you're not there yet, and it's okay if you're a little bit different.
For those of you who have not seen Mulan, we didn't actually say, but like Mulan loves her family and loves her country just as much as her father does. So much so that she secretly like disguises herself as a guy to take her father's place. For reference, that's what actually happens. He accepts her back, right? Even though he, could be super upset, and yet he gets why she did it, because it's basically what he's shown her his whole life is this is what you should do for others. And so he can be upset that she risked her own safety, and yet still like proud of her because wow, she's following in my footsteps in a lot of ways. And yet I do like how he's, like you said, he's okay with her not following like the tradition of like you gotta find a guy right away or
like
whatever.
All the other dads who are like, you need to get married right away. He's not pushing that on her, which is different. And that movie is different because it is a lot about like being proud of your country and putting your life on the line for other people. So I think it does have a lot to say about people that actually do serve the country in the military or in some other way where they're putting their lives on the line. And having a girl in a dangerous combative situation, it might be a little bit more of an extreme scenario. But I don't think you have to take it to like the full extent necessarily. But there's places for women too that are putting their lives on the line to help other people.
I mean, if you, like in the U.S., you got certain standards that you have to meet in the military or whatever. And if you can meet the standards, go for it. Like, I don't think there's any problem with that. Now, there's the whole thing of serving your country, right? Because patriotism, I think personally, like, it's an important thing because if you're in a country that grants you certain rights that are super beneficial for the health of society, you should fight to defend those. Now, if you're in a culture where that's not the case, then, maybe patriotism is not the greatest thing. But in this case, in this movie, I think really everything is just portrayed so well, with Mulan being able to serve her family, to serve her country, and in a lot of ways sort of just find out who she is, but not like in a really weird way.
No, it's not in a weird way. She discovers that I think she realizes more of her general spirit is very determined. Mm-hmm. She's a very determined person, and her awkwardness and the things about who she is actually has a place in society, which is an important thing to realize about yourself. And yeah, it's not like in a weird way. And there's a romantic aspect of the movie, but I wouldn't say it's not like the main point of the movie. I also like that at the end, I always forget what his name is. I don't know why, but the person that she was supposed to be like the leader of her little tiny unit of misfit people for the army. Yeah. He comes back and he kind of like asks to start dating her. It's not like... Yeah. For once, he doesn't get down on one knee and is like, all right, let's make it happen. It should be like, well, I just met you, like... Mm-hmm. And there's kind of this scene where he like talks to her dad too, which I think is kind of a sweet thing too, to like, I don't know, actually show some suitor talking to a girl's dad and having it be like, this person you respect, her father, mm-hmm. thinks that this guy is a good person too, which is probably something you want to encourage for young girls, that mm-hmm. like if you're in a good family scenario and your dad likes the person that you're dating, that's a good thing. That's probably a good sign.
For one, okay, yeah, we're gonna let's tie it into the suitors because you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah,
I don't remember his name.
Why can't I love him.
We're
He's
terrible
like one
people.
Of my favorite.
But when you think about it, okay, first of all, same thing, right? He wants to serve his people. Mm-hmm. Like, he's a determined guy. He not only does he want to serve his people, he's proven himself to be like a strong man, like a strong leader. Mm-hmm. Like, he has to take all of these misfit, couldn't pass gym class. I think that's actually in the song. What was it? Something about I was a fool really for skipping gym class.
something like that.
No, he has to take all these guys, whip them into shape, and like it's like a 3-minute song cutscene. But when you think about it, they're probably there for a few weeks, a month, something mm-hmm. like that, and that whole time Mulan sees this guy. Now it's a little bit awkward because it's like he doesn't know that she's a girl for a large portion of the movie. Kind of
part of the humor of the movie. I don't think you have to take it to any sort of like...
Well, no, and he doesn't... It's not like, they're like gay or something like that. That's not what's going on. He literally doesn't know. He's just building a relationship with this dude who's...
Yeah, he comes to respect this person as a person, to the point that when he does discover that she is a girl, which is something that just because of the culture, mm-hmm. because of laws, he should kill her. Like, mm-hmm. there's just no other way around it. And he doesn't... Sure, he leaves her stranded on an icy, frozen mountain. Which, not great either. But you can kind of tell that he's very upset and very confused in that moment, too.
For sure.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with showing characters that make bad decisions, as long as in the end they learn something from them and they make it right. Which he does.
The point I was trying to make is that they've been growing this relationship over time, and just as a relationship, like they're not obviously it's not in his mind at all about this romance. It might be in Mulan's a tiny bit, probably not that much. Yeah. But then once he does find out, he already has that respect built up for Mulan, and then it's, hey, I'm interested in you, like, do you want to, go get coffee sometime? Or whatever the equivalent is. I don't know. He's a good dude, and they're both... The reason they even start having, like, a romantic relationship is because of the respect they built up for each other.
It's kind of like co-workers falling in love.
Yeah,
like
there
Jim
you go.
Pam.
There you go. Mulan is secretly just the office. Wait, but Mulan came first, so The
I'm
Office is secretly Mulan.
basically, yeah. But yeah, that's one suitor. That's a great
let's give him
scenario.
a pretty decent guy. Overall, perfect movie ish, perfect-ish.
Yes, about as perfect-ish as they come.
Yes. How about the other dudes though? Okay, because
let's just say John Smith is kind of crap. And
you heard it here.
I think he kills her fiance or something like that. Or I don't know if he does or someone else in the movie does. Everybody kind of dies, and it really doesn't.
Yeah, no, we're not talking about Pocahontas. Pocahontas is done.
There's just nothing really to work with there.
As a reminder, though, we are talking. This is the Disney Princess podcast.
Yes.
So we're focusing on the princesses, but we're also focusing
on the relationships.
No, what I'm getting at is more importantly than the princesses, we're focusing on all the messages being portrayed to the girls, which they're all connected to the
romance
princesses.
is a big part of most of these movies.
Okay, so who else we got? We got the Beast, we got Aladdin, we got
Jafar and Gaston, who are like the alternatives.
I guess. What else? What's the other movie? We already talked about Mulan.
Yeah.
We did. I'm looking at my list, guys.
I think we have everything from this era.
Little Mermaid.
Eric.
He doesn't have any personality.
Eric is a very superficial person because he falls in love with somebody's voice, and he isn't willing to marry this girl that has this like fun, quirky personality, and until he realizes that it's her voice.
All right, so don't marry a man named Eric. That's what I was gonna say, but I take it back. I don't mean it. Yeah. I know a couple guys named Eric. They're not too bad.
No, I think it's just I'm not a fan.
Don't marry shallow guys who don't like you until
and are willing to marry a girl after 3 days too.
That's true. Don't like you until they realize you have a nice voice. Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
And I feel like the Beast is sort of the...
I don't know how to feel about the Beast.
The Beast is a really interesting thing because everybody's always like, oh, Belle has Stockholm Syndrome, etc., etc. Which I think the original storyline probably is saying something else about society or culture, but I think in the story it's kind of like, yes, what goes on here is a very iffy scenario that doesn't translate into real life, but the general message of the romance is that it's not what's on the outside that is important, obviously.
That's why it's called The Beauty and the Beast, right? Belle is supposed to be the prettiest woman in the city, and the Beast is Chewbacca on steroids or something like that.
Yeah. It's kind of like he got turned into a beast because some old lady came to his house, and he was a very selfish person. He's like, oh, you're ugly, don't come into my house.
That's strike one for the Beast. He called an old lady ugly.
Old ladies. And so she's like, surprise, I'm actually an enchantress, and you just failed my test. I'm turning you into an ugly beast. You have this X amount of time to have somebody fall in love with you, and if that doesn't happen, you're gonna stay a beast forever. Time is running out.
Oof, that's a scary scenario, Christina. Yeah. What's he gonna do?
Time is running out, and then you have Gaston on the flip side, who has kind of a similar thing. He's kind of like what the Beast was probably like in the very beginning.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Gaston is not given this opportunity to change. He's not willing to. He falls off of a castle.
Oops.
Boo-hoo. So sorry. Yeah. So, basically, Beast kind of captures Belle, is what the whole thing is.
Belle wanders off. Something.
What actually happens?
No, it was her father got lost. I'm gonna try and remember this. Come on, Kurt, you can do this. So her dad, bumbling idiot dad, gets like lost in the woods, and then the beast captures him. Belle comes. She loves her father, even in spite of his, quirks, and I think offers to trade.
Yeah, she trades.
She trades, right? She's gonna take his spot instead, in prison or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then so the other thing we didn't mention is like, so the beast is transformed, but all of his like, castle crew, they're also. If you
don't know this movie,
yes, please.
Where have you been living all of your life? It's a very famous movie.
Yes.
And a very famous Broadway musical.
I don't want to insult all of y'all's intelligences, but at the same time, I don't want to leave somebody under a rock if they have no idea.
I don't know. Maybe this modern generation might be
people don't know good princess movies.
Yeah.
Hit them on the side of the head. Mm-hmm. Basically, Belle's captured, and this is the whole Stockholm syndrome, where basically that is essentially like you fall in love with your captor over time.
Basically, because they've captured you and you don't have anybody else to like talk to or be around or anything like that, you're gonna eventually develop a relationship with that person, especially since they kind of hold all the power in your life, and like psychologically you can't handle thinking of them as your captor after a certain point in time, because that's just going to mess you up. Mm-hmm. So you have to develop this idea in your head that you want to be there almost, or like you want to like this person, because if you don't, that's bad. If they're doing something bad to you, it's like staying that way for a really long time. Mm-hmm. You have to develop something.
Which we decided, though, while an interesting theory, is probably not the point of this movie.
It's not the point of this movie.
The Beast is in a rough place, right? He's not the greatest dude in the first place. Mm-hmm.
He's had some years to
He's changed. Yeah,
think about this.
Yeah.
But he hasn't necessarily. He doesn't really believe that he's capable of change at this point in time.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so Belle comes along, and basically she's his only shot. Like, if she can fall in love with him, then there's a chance he can.
Yeah, because time is running out.
Yep.
Those leaves, petals are falling off of the rose.
And then we have finally the it's the winter song transforming into the Tale as Old as Time song.
Yeah, they're slowly she's slowly starting to see that he has some good points and he's willing to change out of love for her.
Yeah, that is the interesting part, is he needs her to fall in love with him, and yet he's actually kind of falling in love with her more, or like it's not like a one-sided thing. I do like that point where he seems willing to change, even in like dumb things where all the birds are scared of him, and so she shows him how to hold his hand so he can feed the birds. And then he's a big sloppy mess when he eats, and then she shows him how to eat more properly, and he's willing, like, even the tiny things he's willing to change. And that all culminates, though, in him letting her go.
Yeah, she realizes that her dad is sick, and she has to go and help him. And he lets her go without any promise or need for her to come back to him ever again. She doesn't realize that this means that he's going to die, essentially, but he's willing to realize that he loves this person, and if you love this person, you're going to actually give them their freedom. You're going to let them live their life, and holding somebody captive isn't a great thing to do.
Well, yeah, okay. Okay, young girls. I know none of you are listening to this, but that's okay. If the dude is holding you captive, there are major problems.
Yes.
But looking at this in more of a philosophical kind of thing, being willing to, even though you both love each other, being willing to let the other person do like what they need to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you're really dating someone very seriously and then the other person is like, I need to move to this other country, or like, I need to break off this relationship, not because I don't love you, but because I have this other thing I need to do in life. And like actually saying yes to that in a very loving way and be like, I love you so much that I'm gonna let you go and not like fight you on this because I think this is important, kind of like that. I don't know. It's hard to translate into real life.
Yeah, but it's like, and it obviously it depends on like how serious of a relationship they have or whatever. I mean, the bell. No, Beauty. I can't talk.
Her name is Belle.
Belle and
Smith.
the Beast. No, it's not Belle Smith. She's not related to John Smith. Obviously, weird situation, but they have been together for a decent chunk of time. I guess it formed a strong enough relationship where, yeah, that is like being willing to let the other person do their thing. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It makes sense.
So she goes off, tries to save her dad, gets into all sorts of trouble, etc., etc., and then the Gaston is like, what? You were off with this beast, and I'm gonna go kill this beast because he's gonna like come after this or whatever.
Which, I mean, to be fair, mob murdering the man who's holding a woman captive, I mean, that kind of makes sense.
It makes sense.
Gaston's motivation to, I need to marry Belle and this other guy does not get a shot.
Yeah, kind of what's going on there. So they storm the castle, all this stuff, and the beast isn't really willing to fight back against them because he's lost all will to live. Like,
oh yeah, I forgot about that.
He's lost his will to live. He's lost his only chance at love.
Yeah, so
and he throws himself kind of a pity party. He like lets the people come at him.
I mean, to be honest, if I was stuck like that, I probably wouldn't care either. Like,
yeah. So Gaston comes after him and tries to kill him, and then he realizes that Belle is there, and she's like, no, like, don't give up. Like, I came back. It's, like, gonna be okay. Too late. Gaston comes, stabs him, and Beast is dead. And
I'm forgetting how this movie is.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
At the same time, Gaston also ends up, like, getting thrown off of the castle because he was, like, trying to kill everybody.
I forgot that he died.
Anyway, so Beast is there dead, and Belle's crying over him, and she's like, no, I love you. And then he magically transforms into a really ugly man.
He went from a
at
least he's human.
As a beast, he looks like, he's a beast. Like, I don't know how to compare the handsomeness of various beast creatures. As a man, not the most attractive, but again, that's what this whole movie's about. It's about, like, what's on the inside. And I think there's a pretty strong idea that they get married soon after that, but it isn't necessarily like... I think there's kind of this hidden portion of the story where it's like after he turns back into a human, they kind of have to like work through the relationship again, because that's a whole different scenario. This dude knows how to eat right. Like, we gotta go over that.
Interesting.
But yeah, they're in love. There we go.
Good sentence. That's right. We're a little drunk on our blizzards that we ate from Dairy Queen. The other thing I was thinking about, though, was the books. You gotta hit the books.
Yes.
If you're a young girl, best personality trait, read 1,000,000 books.
Yeah.
It's pretty much universal.
I kind of skipped over that, but they have a lot more in common than, like, they're both captured together. Belle is kind of sick of living in this town where they think that girls are just there to be pretty and get married. She wants more than that, more than her provincial life. And when she goes to the castle, he's like, oh, by the way, I have this whole entire magical room dedicated to literature.
And everyone melts in ecstasy or what? I don't know.
Okay, that's exactly what happened. Yeah,
Wrong
sure.
word. Everyone melts in. What's the word I'm looking for?
They're all happy.
They all happy.
They all happy. And he doesn't really appreciate the books, but she does. And he's like, oh, by the way, she's also really smart. Stuff like that. So there's some good messages there hidden within a fantasy story.
Personality matters. Belle, quote 1994, whenever the movie.
That's exactly what she said.
I don't know when the movie came out. I think Aladdin is the only other one. What about Aladdin?
Aladdin is
because Christina, he's a thief. He steals from people.
True. You're gonna find that in about every Disney princess movie after that.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Kind of
he's
kind of a bad boy, which is a whole thing in itself, I think. But in this specific movie, there's kind of this idea of a guy trying to like hide behind his power and his wealth to try to like look really cool and impress the girl rather than being himself, which I think is kind of a common problem.
Yeah, kind of. For one, I hadn't seen this movie in forever, and oh my word, there's so many like. The genie is literally just
Robin
a living.
Williams makes the movie.
He's like a living fourth wall breaker or something like that. It's hilarious. The thing I was thinking about though, is Aladdin. He is a thief. He does steal, but he's also an orphan living on the streets, right? I mean, you could maybe look into the whole. Why didn't he just get a job or something like that? I don't know.
I don't think that's necessarily the point of the movie.
Yeah. The point is, he's had a rough go, and you can see even early on that his character, where he steals the bread for some, he steals one loaf of bread, right? He's not like hoarding it. He's not robbing.
Lame situation.
Yeah. He's living to eat, or eating to live. I don't know, something like that. Same thing. And there's two other young, like, orphan kids who are even younger than him, who he probably remembers sort of what it's like to be in that scenario, and gives up his bread to these other kids.
Yeah.
So even early on, you can see he understands other people and their plights, kind of, and he cares about them.
Yeah.
And that's really a theme, and the biggest thing, I think, in Aladdin is everybody feels trapped.
Yeah.
Aladdin feels trapped in his life of poverty. Jasmine feels the opposite. She feels trapped in her life of, like, luxury. And the genie he's literally trapped. He's in a lamp.
And Jafar feels trapped in his life
ego. Something like that.
Yeah. That's kind of what the movie is sort of about, like your circumstances versus your actions, or like your personality versus your circumstances.
So the thing I like about Jasmine, I don't know, I think she has a pretty firm grasp on what she would want if she did want to get married.
Yeah.
She doesn't. I think she literally does say, like, she wants to marry out of love.
I think she's one of the only princesses that realizes just how naive she is, or, like, unexperienced in the real world, to the point where she's just not quite sure that she would even know what she's looking for in a guy. Because she hasn't seen the world. She hasn't really done much.
She's basically been pampered her whole life, and she hates it, and that's why... Like, quite frankly, why she hates most of the guys who come to see her is because she knows what her life has been like, and she hates her own life. So why would she like these other guys who have also received this pampering their whole life? And, like, she's just not about that life. And that's why, interestingly enough, when Aladdin comes along, right, disguised as the prince, she kind of doesn't like him as the prince. Like, I mean, he like... wows her with the magic carpet ride and jazz, but
she still, because he's hiding his actual personality, which he has a moral compass, and that's kind of what Jasmine is looking for, someone who has a moral compass and someone who's going to do the right thing and someone who isn't just the spoiled brat.
basically.
Yeah. She knows what she's looking for and he's acting the wrong way. So I guess, just be yourself. Be yourself. And the right person, they're just, I guess, eventually gonna come along, maybe. I don't know. You're probably gonna be single forever. It's fine.
Christina will now be taking any applications.
Yeah.
If you're a nice guy.
There's a little thing you could fill out below.
Link in the description below.
Yeah.
Christina's looking for guys. Please.
JK, no, sorry. Too bad. But yeah.
No, for real.
Well,
She's desperate.
No, don't tell them that. Wait, no, don't hide my personality. Okay.
What did we learn, Christina, from the Disney?
So, in the end, Aladdin is faced with the kind of choice to either keep living a lie or do the right thing, basically. And he does the right thing. And Jasmine respects that. And
even though he's a thief. Or, previously was a thief. I assume he, quit stealing things when he didn't have to. Maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, and in the end, he has the opportunity to go back to being a prince, so that way, by law, they could, get married or whatever. And he chooses to free the genie instead because that's the right thing to do.
Literally, he's cutting himself off from this romance opportunity to do the right thing, which I think is a good trait, that he's willing to, again, do what needs to be done to take the high moral road in spite of your own feelings.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously this movie is more about Aladdin because he's the title character. Yeah. But Jasmine has some good qualities that we kind of already talked about. She has some negatives, though, that I think a lot of the movie would be talking about, like what girls might be thinking about for guys later on. They're kind of forming this concept of what that looks like. But in terms of actually seeing themselves in a movie, I think Jasmine does some iffy things in the film that it's kind of like, first of all, her outfit is a little... Yeah, I don't know. Especially for a 14-year-old.
I don't know what... everything is, like, hyper... like extreme in this movie, and so everybody in Arabia or wherever is apparently, like you said, everybody's a belly dancer.
It's just, which is what? Something that they have tried to correct in like the Disney theme parks and in the live action movie.
We're not talking about any of the live action ones, but they're. In general, most of them have like the same applications.
I appreciate that Disney has long stood for trying to like present other cultures, but they haven't necessarily put all of the effort into doing that correctly. And this was a case where
this one was almost, I feel like, not always mocking, but a lot of stuff was like played for laughs when it would be have like some sort of cultural significance, maybe.
Not even that her outfit's inappropriate. It's just that her outfit is not correct to the place and time. That was something that I was like, that's not. And then, like, also little girls like to dress up as Disney princesses, and that's kind of like it's a little bit awkward to like kind of.
I would not.
It's sort of like
want to have like if I were ever a father, I'd be like. Yeah, we're not dressing up as Jasmine.
I think people kind of get it incorrect too. It's not like about like constricting women, like you must always wear this. It's kind of like about little girls want to dress up as the princesses they see, and if the princesses they see have very like sexualized outfits, that's kind of like giving them an incorrect notion of like what is attractive in a person, and like using throughout the film. Jasmine kind of uses her body as more of an object to get what she wants in weird circumstances, and I don't...
Yeah, there's the whole thing with Jafar at the end.
Isn't something you want to necessarily be like, oh, this is how you get what you want in life, or this is how you gain attention. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't think that's great for a little kid's movie.
Which is interesting because, and yeah, in some sense, Jasmine has she knows what she doesn't want in a guy, but she also uses some shady methods of like manipulating the other men in the movie, which is kind of like
message.
Yeah, and it's kind of the opposite of like Belle if you think about it, because Belle is
using her brains.
She's like I don't need to, she's supposed to be the beauty, right? And she never flaunts that in the film at all. Whereas it's the opposite in Aladdin. Also, I mean, as far as attire goes, I mean, the Little Mermaid, what's up with that?
I
don't understand. Mermaids are confusing in the first place.
Yeah, mermaids are really confusing. How does all that work? We do not know. Again, it's just like, you want little girls to be able to accept their bodies for what they are and be appreciative. Like, this is just who I am as a person, but you don't want them to, like, when you're a little kid, you just want them to be a little kid. Like, they have their whole lives to figure out all sorts of stuff in life, and you don't want to put that pressure on them or necessarily that thought in a way where, like, I don't know, you're kind of introducing ideas about romance that's in a very, like, sexualized or kind of, like, iffy way.
Yeah.
Just too early.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I just don't think they put it in there's not, like, a positive twist on that or a reason why it's done, necessarily.
Portraying that side of romance, while, like, there is legitimate, like, that is beauty and stuff, like attractiveness, like there is something to be said for that in romance, but I don't think it's really portrayed in a good way in this movie.
No,
I think that's what I'm trying to get
It's
at.
not like I just don't see the reasons behind that, other than reasons which wouldn't make sense for a kid's movie, like
yeah
that's iffy. But I don't know. I guess we kind of covered that, the 80s, 90s.
Yeah, I was gonna say we gotta move on to the modern era. So this is working out for us. We're just going chronological. We got the oldies, I was gonna say the middies,
the golden
but
age of Disney. They would call it.
Now we are in the modern era, which, reading off which ones we'll be talking about, it would be obviously Frozen. We'll talk about Frozen 2 because that was fairly popular still. Tangled, Brave, and the last... Oh, Moana. Yeah, I forgot about that. And then the last 2D one, which was Princess and the Frog. Disney is definitely making an effort as far as they want young girls, especially young girls, but just anybody who sees the movie.
Yeah.
These movies have a point, which is actually really interesting because a lot of modern Disney movies, like if you think about Star Wars, like the Han Solo movies, there's no point to this movie. It's just filler junk. This is really interesting because they're very intentional about these movies have a point.
Yes, these movies have a point, and I also will say that while a lot of the Disney princess movies that came before this point, aside from Aladdin, did not have a lot of appeal for little boys to be watching.
Yeah, that's true.
So girls are kind of getting all this message about romance in the future, and little boys aren't really getting that in the movies they're watching. But these movies have a little bit more of an equal siding, where a little boy could watch it and find himself in the movie.
They are definitely still, I think, mainly targeted to young
little
girls.
Yeah, especially with the merchandising and stuff that.
For sure. But I think Tangled is a really I think that movie came out in 2012, 10, 12, something like that.
Yeah.
I was 10 years old, I think, when I first saw it, and I was probably past the target audience, but still, I really enjoyed it. I remember when I first saw it, and yeah, I guess some of the other ones are, not as much, but I think about, like, Moana, you got what's his name? Who's
Maui.
Maui. He's like this super buff dude with tattoos.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have ate that up. Tattoos probably would have freaked me out when I was younger, but
Yeah.
But like basically, it's not, like you said, it's not as one-sided. Which one? Where do we want to go?
It's so much more difficult to like classify these down, but I guess you can kind of go movie by movie about like what the kind of general vibe is, or like what the general point is.
Yeah, let's do that for this one.
For these movies, they've definitely had the exposure they need in talking about the like actual plot, but not so much maybe like the point behind it or the themes.
The first one would be Princess and the Frog, if we're going time-wise. Yeah. So
Princess and the Frog.
I saw this for the first time, and I loved it.
Yeah, I feel like this is maybe this and Brave are two of the more modern princess movies that do not receive the credit that they deserve. Mm-hmm. Especially The Princess and the Frog. First of all, this is the first black princess that you're seeing out there. Which that's a huge deal. Second of all, it's set in the US, which is different.
Yeah, US modern times.
In a very
What's up with that?
Time. Like, it's different.
Well, it's not modern times. I said that wrong.
No, it's not modern times.
It's
kind of like the jazz age, 20s, 30s, okay, somewhere in there.
Because the dad goes to war.
World War
One. Okay. So not modern times, but like modern era.
Yeah. So there's so much more for the audience, I think, to relate to in this movie compared to like movies in the past that had so much of the fantasy element. Obviously, this movie has a lot of the.
You hear this? Element. This is real life-ish. More
real life-ish than maybe some of the past movies. But yeah, what I really like about this movie is the main character. Tiana is probably, if there was a Disney princess that you wanted your daughter to look up to and wanted to be like, it would be Tiana. Out of all of them.
Yeah, we'll talk about this at the very end when we say what our favorites are, but Tiana definitely, I mean, for sure, like, top 3. Like, Tiana's character, I'll let you go first, because I've talked a lot, and you really love this movie, though.
Yeah. I don't think I saw this movie until I was probably a teenager, because, it just didn't receive the exposure it needed.
It also had, there is a fair warning, because this movie, like, you could definitely look at, it's got a lot of, like, voodoo creepiness going on, which I don't think is something...
For little kids?
Yeah, you could, for sure, like, not for sure, maybe, like, a younger teen, that'd be okay.
I think with any...
Not, like, a super young kid. That might be a little too much. Little kids
where they just wouldn't understand what's supposed to be going on.
Yeah.
It's definitely going to seem like, oh my goodness, these people are like being sucked into graves.
That's terrifying.
Like, it's a it's presented in a really creepy way, which I think kind of, if you're a little bit older for children, it can kind of speak to like the reality that there's some people that are into very dark, magical sort of spiritual things out there, and talking about how that is a reality.
It's all right to show people like that are messed up, and I'm glad that that's actually in the movie. I'm just saying that might be a bit much for really little kids. But
that's just kind of like a disclaimer. I think there's you could probably debate that, depending, like, this is kind of
I think it should be in the movie.
I don't know. But so Tiana has great parents. First of all, her parents are amazing. Her dad works really, really hard to provide for his family
and still cares about her.
And he still cares about her. The same with
He's not like
her
a
mom.
workaholic. He's working for his family.
Yeah, they're both working really hard to give their daughter the best life that she can have, and they're happy in doing what they do, even though their work is hard, and it's probably, they're not, obviously not receiving the high up job opportunities because of the time and the place, and just what's going on in this situation.
Is this like Louisiana? Right?
Yeah, it's New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah.
She really respects her dad, and her dad tells her, yes, to dream big in life. And she really likes cooking, and she wants to like have her own restaurant. He's like, that's great. You can dream and imagine, which is great to tell little kids, but you need to put effort into what you're doing too. Like you need to work hard. You can't just expect for things to magically happen in life, which is very interesting for a Disney film to say that. But yeah. There's a two-sided sort of thing, but yeah.
I remember like hearing that like right off the bat. It was I don't remember the exact line. It was. I gotta look it up because I need to know exactly what he said.
Yeah, it's something about magic and wishing is only gonna take you halfway there. Something like that. But in that single moment, he also tells her to not lose sight of what is most important in life, which is something that she takes her the whole entire movie to try to understand what that means. That dreaming and working hard have their place in life, but it's like what you're working for and what your dreams are about that is important.
Here's the line that I'm looking at. So this is the very beginning of the movie. Tiana's dad tells her this. He says, "You wish and you dream with all your heart, but remember that old star can only take you part of the way. You got to help it with some hard work of your own, and then you can do anything you set your mind to."
Yeah.
So I remember that was like in the first like 5 minutes of the movie. I remember just like hearing that, like I like looked over at you and I was like, all right, yeah, this is good. I like this.
So it's a movie that is about hard work, having fun, but within that, what are you working hard for, and what is your fun contain? Like, what is your dream about? And the, opposite character to Tiana is, why can't I think of his name? Prince Naveen. That's what the
prince.
Prince
and
Naveen.
Even her friend too.
Yeah.
They're both kind of opposites in different ways.
She has opposite characters to her. So yeah, Tiana grows up. She's working 2 jobs to get this restaurant because she thinks that's what her dad wanted her to do. She never has any fun in life. She never
doesn't
learns how to enjoy life.
Yeah, she doesn't go out with her friends when they invite her and stuff. She's like, no, I gotta work.
Yeah, so she's working away, but she's not really working towards anything other than working all the time.
She's working toward the restaurant.
Yeah, she's working towards the restaurant.
The point is that she's like dead set on that.
Yeah,
that's her goal.
She hasn't really found any joy in that though.
Yeah.
Necessarily. It's just like she feels like this is what her dad needed her to do.
She's kind of grinding out this part of life so she can get to what she really wanted to do. And it is her dream, but it's also kind of her dream because it was her dad's dream to open this restaurant.
Like she has a passion for this, but her passion is sort of misplaced because it doesn't really involve other people. She kind of ignores other people in her life.
Yeah.
And Prince Naveen is the opposite, where all he wants to do in life is just have fun. He wants women. He wants to dance. That's all he wants in life, and he doesn't really have any like dreams or goals or. He's
just partying for the next day.
Yeah.
But then he has to marry, right? To get
money.
Because he's broke. His parents finally cut off his money supply or whatever. Yeah, and then
he tries to get the easy way out,
which is the voodoo guy.
Which is the voodoo guy, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna just use magic, and this is gonna get me what I need." Goes haywire, gets turned into a frog, finds Tiana, mistakes her for a princess. She kisses him. They're both frogs.
Oops.
Leads
also,
to...
classic turn on the...
Yeah.
Didn't see that one
nice
coming.
Little switcheroo
Twist
there.
on the story.
And then they have a fabulous adventure in the swamp where they meet a beautiful alligator and a lovely firefly.
A firefly.
Who are both just fabulous characters.
Yeah, they're fun. I like them.
They have so many fabulous side characters.
I love the crazy old lady who's...
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, those are just side characters though. But in the end, both Tiana and Naveen realize that what they are kind of missing in life is working for other people and providing for other people and sacrificing their hopes and dreams for somebody that they love in life. So what they're kind of both missing in life is actual love, because Naveen's just kind of like wanting to have fun but not really looking for anything serious and not really finding any joy in life because he's not working for anything. He doesn't have any real passion. And Tiana is just kind of working for her dream, but she missed that element of doing it for other people. And
yeah, that was the important thing, where her dad, you saw this early on, so her dad died. I think we brought that up. Yeah, but maybe. Anyway, there's a scene early on where they make gumbo, and when her dad's still alive, and then the first thing they do is he basically says like gumbo needs to be shared. Yeah. And so they open up the door, everybody comes in, like all their neighbors, and they eat gumbo. And when you see Tiana and her trying to fulfill her father's dream, it's like she's working so hard for the dream, but not exactly, but kind of missing the point, which was this is the place it should be to serve others, to bring the others together. And her dream is more like this is going to be like the fanciest restaurant in town. And so it's like a little bit misplaced, I think.
I mean, at the same time, there isn't like so much wrong with her other than she's also just kind of missing love.
Yeah,
like she's romantic love. She doesn't have it on her radar, and she's not willing to include that in her dreams necessarily.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem with Tiana, and this is I'm not saying like a problem like, oh, this is a flaw, you should not listen to this Tiana because she's like this. This is her problem at the start of the movie. This is the problem that needs to be solved, is that she's so caught up in what like her dream is that she's missing out on the rest of the world, kind of.
Which, again, is a super interesting thing to have in a Disney movie in a world where there's so much pressure on women nowadays to be like the hard-working woman who's so dedicated to her job, where it's almost now kind of on the flip side of what it was in the past, where women feel like they have to work so hard and dedicate their lives to their jobs that they're delaying looking for love, or they're delaying having kids, or doing something else that they might enjoy in life because they feel like they have to be career people rather than like creative people or whatever else it is.
You're right. That's such a weird message because it is countercultural. Where nowadays, like you said, it's like, no, you like we need women in the workforce. You need. I don't want to get all hyper feminist or try and like women are bad or no, women are all good or something. Like I'm not trying to do any of that jazz. But basically, the point is that those pursuits that nowadays, you're right, they're so common, of you should work so hard and women need good jobs and following your career is what you need to do. If that's you and you want to pursue a career, go for it. But I think this movie is really good at saying that don't lose track of other people in spite of that, though, because you have no idea what you could be missing out on because you're so obsessed with this one thing that you need to be a successful woman in the workplace or something like that.
Yeah, I just really like all the themes that are in this movie, and in the end they both kind of even each other out, which I think is an important dynamic in life. Like, either if you're a really fun-loving person, that's an important thing, and if you're really creative, but having other people to keep you scheduled and balanced,
to keep you in check,
making sure you're actually making progress in life is really important. It doesn't even have to be a romantic relationship, but that's important. Or if you're so tight-knit and so scheduled and everything, learning how to be able to relax and be creative and have fun in what you're doing is also very important. But yeah, that's kind of the overall theme of this movie, which is...
Yeah, I really love it. It was good. Mm-hmm. There's other things we talk about, but let's just keep rolling. The next one would be Tangled.
Tangled, I think, yeah.
Yep. Tangled, I've said for the longest time, was my favorite Disney princess movie. I don't know if that's... I'd have to think about that, whether or not that's true. But I remember loving it growing up, and so we watched it again all the way through, and I was like, yep, I liked this for a reason.
Yeah. I think this has some of the more traditional princess elements, but there is kind of that same theme, too, of being so caught up in your dreams and kind of being selfish in that you kind of forget that other people are there too, or that like people are more important than like a physical goal that you have.
Whereas Princess and the Frog was, following your dreams and hard work and all this jazz. This one's not so much as a hard work. It's more of a lofty dream of for there's literally the the scene in the pub or whatever where all the villains singing I have a dream. Yeah. And like for Rapunzel, who because of evil Lady Gothel has been stuck in a tower for who knows how long.
Very relatable, by the way.
Yeah, we were going to talk about quarantine. I was literally just oh my word, what am I doing with my life? That song where she's like, I did
this and this and this.
And then it's painting and cooking and reading and more painting.
I saw someone, I'm sure there's more than one person, but I saw someone did a YouTube video where it's like, I followed Rapunzel's routine in quarantine.
And she's like, oh my word, she did all that before 12 and I'm not even awake yet. What?
Yeah. But yeah, they both have goals.
Yeah, Rapunzel, her only goal... Not her only goal, her biggest dream. Because she loves Gothel. She loves her mother. She trusts her, which she shouldn't, but she does because she doesn't know anything different. And where it's her biggest dream in life is she wants to see these lanterns.
Because she feels like she wants to know who she is. Because she doesn't really feel like she has... If you're going to be by yourself kind of forever, I think it would be really difficult to form an identity because you're just kind of the things that you do. You don't have any other people to do them for or do them with.
Painting is great, but at some point you kind of get tired of looking at your own paintings.
I think it definitely shows that people, even the people that are like, oh, I'm an introvert, or oh, I don't need people. You still need people. Everybody needs people for some reason. I don't even care if you're a sociopath. You still need people to entertain you. You still need people.
Yeah, and so that's her dream. Flynn Rider, or Eugene, he says his dream in the tavern is to be surrounded, by massive... Basically, he's to have his own private island and be surrounded by money. That's his dream.
He's a very Aladdin-type character where he was orphaned, didn't have anything. He wants to be able to live an easy life and
he's
have all the success.
He's the more charismatic Aladdin.
Yes, very charismatic. Flynn Rider's
Here comes the smolder.
He has... I mean, obviously his personality isn't great because his moral compass is a little fuzzy.
Yeah, he's not like Aladdin. He's not stealing for,
But he's charismatic and funny, and he makes for a very entertaining character. And
for sure,
you can understand why the two personalities of... He's kind of a very cynical human being, and Rapunzel is like the least
super naive,
so willing to love other people and trust other people that he feels like he needs to be worthy of her trust, kind of, which always makes for a good storyline.
So they go off on their fun adventure, and the interesting part is all of Gothel's warnings of why you should not go out the tower are actually kind of true.
Not the worst,
like,
even if she's a villain.
Like, obviously she's manipulating Rapunzel to stay in the tower, but saying that, hey, there's men with pointy teeth, like, and then she runs into all these like guys who are not great. She technically, Flynn Rider is not a great guy either, although like his character you see more throughout the film, where he's not like a cruel person at all. He's a thief.
Yeah. But there's character development in both of them, sort of. But yeah.
I think I kind of want to skip along to sort of the end of the movie, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in between. They have lots of adventure and stuff, and it's super fun. But the end of the movie, where Gothel kind of reunites with Rapunzel and basically tells her, give him this crown that he wanted, right, and see what he does. See if he'll
leave you, like,
yeah, he's gonna take off. He just wanted the money. He doesn't care about you. And that's what she does, and basically that's what she thinks happens, right? That's not what actually happened. He got taken out and just like basically forced to look like he's leaving when he's really not. And so that's heartbreaking for Rapunzel. And so she has to return to the tower with Gothel. She goes back on her own, right? She just goes back willingly because she's like, my mother, or quote unquote mother, was right all along. Flynn, he goes back because he just knows Gothel's a terrible person. Is that why? Or was there some other...
Yeah, he realized he is in a lot of trouble, and he's going to be killed, and he doesn't really see a way out of that, but he knows that Rapunzel's life is in danger because he talks to one of her like cronies in jail or whatever.
Oh, that's right. He
realizes what's going on and that Rapunzel's not safe, and so rather than succumbing to his punishment, he, with some help of many friends,
he busts out of there.
He escapes. And Rapunzel also during this time comes to the realization that, oh my goodness, I'm this lost princess that everybody in that kingdom was talking about. My mother's not actually my mother, and I'm in a terrible situation that I have no way of getting out of.
And then Flynn shows up. He calls out for Rapunzel, who lets out her hair, but climbs up to the top, and oh no! Rapunzel's like kind of chained up. This ain't good. And he gets stabbed. Yeah,
he gets stabbed, and then Gothel is like, okay, we're leaving.
Yep, we're getting out
of here. And Rapunzel's like, look, I'm either going to keep fighting you the rest of my life to try to escape, or if you let me go in this single moment and let me go heal him so that way he doesn't die, I'll go with you.
Her hair has magic healing powers, if you don't know.
Yeah. You've probably seen the movie, but
yeah.
And so she goes over to try to heal him, and he's like, what are you doing? Like, if you do this and you say that you're just gonna give up, then you're not going to ever have that freedom that you've wanted in life. So he knows what her dream is in life, and he knows he respects her as a person. He thinks that she's this really cool person, and he loves her. So he in that moment chops off her hair, her magical hair, so that way she doesn't have healing powers, and now Gothel doesn't have the magic that she needs from her.
Yep. Then Gothel
dies.
Basically, she freaks out and falls off the tower.
Yeah. And so Flynn is dead.
Yeah, and it's super sad. And this one I didn't catch when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But the last thing he tells Rapunzel before he dies is that you were my new dream. Mm-hmm. Where Flynn has changed to the point of he was just obsessed with he's kind of like a thrill seeker.
Yeah.
He's living for, the excitement and wants to be wealthy and kind of do his own thing, and realizes that I actually really kind of care about this person.
Which, that's an interesting point too, because it's kind of like the whole thing about the movie all kind of comes down to Rapunzel and the fact that Rapunzel has a moral compass, and Rapunzel loves other people, and she sees the best in other people, and she is very excited by the world around her, and Flynn sees that, and he wants to be like her, and he wants to be around her. Mm-hmm. Which I think that says something about like the importance of who you are as a person and how that like affects the people around you.
Yeah, and even I think, because you're right, he is he's not like he's cynical, right? Mm-hmm. And so all he's seen is the real world his whole life.
Yeah.
And so if the last thing he can do, right, is, even if he's going to die, is to let Rapunzel live her like dream of being free and seeing the world and being this awesome creative person, then that of course he's gonna do that, like if that's the last thing he can do.
He either had the opportunity to let her heal him and let him go on his merry way and her not be free, or her be free and he's dead, and he chose the other one.
Which, there you go. That it's a really great movie because it shows the change in character. Where earlier, if he really was living his dream that he told everybody in the pub, he would have said, "Okay, heal me. I'm out of here. Like I'm gonna go do my own thing, and keep moving on, knowing that you're stuck with this awful situation."
Yeah, and I had a little bit of struggle trying to figure out exactly what Rapunzel learned, but I think Rapunzel learned to be brave in that, and like she made a actual choice in her life to be like, Mother Gothel is this terrible person and that's really scary or whatever, but I'm going to stand up to her for the sake of other people. And
what I think is really interesting is her initial choice to leave the tower. There's that whole sequence of her being like, I'm a despicable human being, and then like, this is the best day ever!
Yeah.
I think that really shows her heart, where, again, going back to young people, like, you should obey your parents. Like, she's really struggling with this. Now, this is obviously, Mother Gothel is actually an evil person, right? But she has this great struggle early on, and I think that shows her character. But then you see, at the end, once she knows the situation, she's willing to be brave and stand up to Gothel. And and then I think same thing with Rapunzel, where her dream was to see the lanterns. That's what she's been like looking forward to her whole life. And now like the world's open to her, so what she's gonna do next. And same thing, where her new dream is also Flynn or Eugene or whatever you want to call him.
Also, I guess in that moment too, because she did realize that she was the princess, she was giving up her ability to be reunited with family and have that identity that she always wanted.
That's true, yeah.
But by the time that everything works out, she heals him.
Does the old like
the tear falls from her eye,
which I remember. I'm a super emotional person. I'm like, that's such a good story beat. I love that.
So he's alive. They go back, and she like meets her parents, and she's she already knows who she is,
Yep.
kind of, at this point in time as a person. So this isn't like the end or the beginning of a dream necessarily. It's just like another great part of her life that she's like willing to face. And then, you know, the movie ends where it's like they didn't get married right away, which is, I think, a good thing. Like, even though, because
they didn't get married after their, you know, week together.
I think the course of this movie takes like 36 hours, maybe 48.
Yeah, something like that.
I don't know, not a long time. Even though they're kind of in love at the whatever end of the movie, they still they don't get married right away, so there's not like that.
It's not the Cinderella syndrome.
Yeah. You should get to know someone probably longer than 48 hours before you marry them, because there's probably other things you have to know first.
Yeah, especially considering that he was
This is not
a thief.
Not a 90-day fiancé situation.
Tangle's really
that's
good.
That movie.
Yeah. Brave and Frozen. That's all we got left. I want to talk about Brave because Brave is super different.
Moana too, actually.
Oh no,
we can do that.
I forgot about Moana.
Moana, we can kind of. Moana and Brave have some basic similarities, I would have to say.
Okay, for one, we just gotta get it out there. Okay, Merida has the greatest hair of all time.
It's fabulous.
It's amazing. It's red, which is already, you know, like +1. Mm-hmm. And then super crazy, frizzy fro craziness. Mm-hmm. It's cool, okay? And she's Scottish. Basically, she's like, I don't even care about the rest. That's basically just a good start. Did you hear that?
Because if you heard that, you already like that movie.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you need to know.
That's the movie.
Nothing else has to happen
Young
in the
girls, no matter where you are across the world, just remember, aspire to be a red-haired Scottish woman.
Super easy to
just work on your accent, you know.
Yeah.
Dye your hair. Do what you gotta do. Great
funny humor and just really cool looking and stuff like that. But the actual plot of this movie is different than the typical.
It's different, and I like it because it's the only mother-daughter one, I think.
Again, the dad in this movie is dumb.
The dad, okay, he's
dumb, but not in the worst of ways, I guess you could say.
I'd say the dad in this movie, he's not like the bumbling idiot. Mm-hmm. He's more of the macho man, which is not as bad. And I think it's pretty obvious that like he cares about his family a lot. He's just, you know, a lot of it's played for laughs, but I don't think he's a bad
He's not
guy.
a terrible person. It's just very clear that his wife is the one that's actually steering this whole trip, this whole ship, and he has like he's not the most smart brain person, we'll put it like that. She's got the smarts. I guess they round each other out, which isn't the worst, I guess.
But yeah, so the thing with this movie is maybe like hints of that in like Mulan a little bit, where there's a certain tradition that you need to follow. But in this case, it's way more severe. It's not as much tradition as it is like... Honestly, this is maybe sort of like some of what Jasmine hated was all this royalty life. But more specifically in this is the mother has a certain identity that she needs her daughter to become. Like, this is what a princess should be. So she has to learn to do all these different things. You know, she's got to learn how to give speeches. She's got to learn how to cook or sew or something like that. I don't remember. Just, you are a princess. This is what you need to do. Mm-hmm. And Merida ain't about that.
No. But the major plot of this movie is that all of the tribes in this island land in Scotland have had years of fighting with each other, and so in order to bring peace, Merida has to marry one of the sons of the other people to bring about peace. And I think that's a interesting thing because it feels more accurate to history, where it wasn't necessarily you must marry because that's what you do. It's more like
it has some intention behind it.
It's a political move that you're doing for the greater good of your own kingdom. Mm-hmm. But still,
still not ideal. And this one, there is no romance in this movie, and that's fine. That's not the point of the movie. Yeah. And Merida, I don't think it's like, oh, she's like opposed to getting married.
She's not opposed to getting married. She just realizes like, hey, I'm 16.
Like, yeah, she doesn't want that right now in her life, which is honestly probably kind of smart. Like, she doesn't feel ready for that, so don't force it.
But she does have some conflict in her conscience too about the fact that, like, what does this mean for her kingdom though?
Yeah, she feels kind of obligated to do it and understands why, but doesn't personally want it.
She just thinks there has to be a different way.
Yeah. She gets so fed up with her mother, trying to force her into this relationship she doesn't want, and goes to the wood carver witch lady, gets a magic pie or something, and then the mother eats it, and boom, she's a bear, which is, I think, symbolic of like their personalities, where the mother is kind of like a little bit she's mama bear, right, where she's very domineering, but still kind of like she loves her daughter.
Yeah,
that's the thing that Merida has to realize at the end, is that she loves her daughter, or that her mother loves her, and that in the end, really no one else like changes that much. The two people who change in the movie are Merida and her mother. Her mother has to realize that the image that she has for her daughter is not necessarily who, like, the same that her daughter wants.
Yeah, and also at the same time that she realizes that what she does want for her daughter in the end doesn't really have anything to do with like the politics or the culture. She actually does want her daughter to be happy and to be herself, which
she thinks is being this princess lady, and then so it takes her going through this experience of being a bear, right, where basically there's the whole time limit thing where this is kind of like the Beast, honestly.
Yeah, like, she has to figure this all out before a certain time period, or her mom is going to go full bear and not be able to come back.
And Merida has to realize that her mother actually does love her.
And that she loves her mom, too.
Yes.
And so, yeah, they figure that out, and then they kind of come to this compromise where they both actually talk and communicate to each other, and they find a solution where I can't quite remember how it ends, but it's kind of like she's not married.
The mom kind of goes like embraces sort of the wild part of Merida, and so they both kind of go on outdoor adventures and stuff. And Merida doesn't get married. I think the tribes kind of work things out because of there was like another bear, which was like the guy who like caused this feud between tribes originally, and basically all the tribes kind of saw that and worked things out. Basically, like, hey, she can go do her thing. Like, we don't need her to marry into, to make things right between us, kind of.
Which I think the main thing that actually applies to real life in this movie is the mother-daughter relationship. Not necessarily anything involving
if you happen to be a Scottish person in the kingdoms, maybe there is. Maybe you are in politics.
But yeah, I think that is a great thing to see in Disney movies, because there's like almost zero mother-daughter relationships that are shown for any extensive amount of time. And kind of does show a real life thing where there tends to be where moms and daughters have this conflict between them, where the daughter's like, why is my mom acting this way? She doesn't understand me. She's always telling me like what to do. And moms are always like, why won't my kid ever listen to me? Like, I know that what I'm telling them is for their own good and stuff like that. And that kind of compromise that you tend to have to come to, where it's like, you both have to realize that you both love each other, and that the things that you communicate to each other just might not be communicated so well. And things like that. And
working things out together. And I like Brave because, like I said earlier, Scottish red hair. But, but the main point of the movie is pretty simple. Because it's simple, they can just focus in on it really well. And it's really, just that mother-daughter bond and how they work things out together and compromise in good ways. I think a lot of people could learn from that.
So after this movie is Frozen.
Yeah, let's do Moana and then talk about Frozen together. I didn't watch all of Moana. I went back and forth between, this is so dumb, why am I watching this? And then some like coconut pirates showed up, and I was like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen.
Moana's...
I don't really know what's going on, honestly.
I would say it's very similar to kind of what's going on in Brave, where, again, there's not a romantic relationship going on, and it's more about a girl trying to struggle between the obligations that she has to her family, her country, etc., and also trying to figure out her own abilities and her own identity, I think, is kind of the main thing that's going on, because her dad wants her to become the next chief ruler person, and she is willing to do that, but at the same time she has a different way of doing that than what the people before her have done, and her dad's worried about her safety, but she makes the decision to, yes, she doesn't listen to her father, which is kind of similar to past movies and might not be necessarily the greatest thing to
I don't think her father's not a bad figure.
Yeah, her father's not a bad person, though, and I think in the end it kind of comes out that he was maybe he loves his daughter so much, but he also might have been kind of constricting her in not like the most healthy of ways, of not letting her do things differently or do things that could potentially get her hurt, but also could potentially be the thing that she needs to do. So I don't know. It's kind of more of like a daughter-dad relationship, and then there's a whole bunch of other things going on just within the storyline that I'm not quite sure how you would apply to actual real life or what the message would be. But I like who Moana is, and that everything that she does, she's doing out of love for her people and out of love for her family, because she doesn't want them to suffer. And also, I just like the way that Moana is portrayed in like the way her body is and her hair. She's looks different than the traditional princess. She has muscle.
She doesn't look like
she has muscle. She likes the outdoors. She has really long, beautiful hair.
Which I guess is similar to Brave, I guess.
Yeah, but it's showing more of a natural hair, which is a big thing right now, between a lot of people who might come from different cultures or have different backgrounds, and there's a lot of bad crap that they get for wearing their hair a certain way, or people just not understanding or respecting that there's a lot of identity that comes from people's hair. So that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think Moana, like, just her identity, I think, is from the little I got. She's a very determined person. She wants to do what's right, but she has her own identity, and so she needs to do what's right within that identity, kind of. Like, I care about my people, but the way that like my father in this case wants me to care about them is not the way I'm best suited to do so.
Yeah.
And so she has to pursue her own way of caring for her people. And yeah, even with, you know, your hair, like her hair and her clothes and stuff like that, like she's just this modest young girl who's doing her thing.
Yeah,
like
she's cool.
She's one of the few people like who just seems like a normal person.
Mm-hmm.
Like I mean, Tiana is a normal person, but she's like almost
she's like a
too
little extra.
real. She's like, wow, this is so relatable.
Yeah.
But Moana is like, I feel like more relatable because she's who like a lot of like 10, 12-year-old girls, like I don't think that's how old she is. I think she's probably a little bit older
than that, but that's kind of like who they
that's kind
want
of
to
what
be,
yeah she
and
seems
really,
like
not really who they like see in life. And I like that too, because it is a big adventure, but it's not like the most fantastic adventure of all of them. Yeah, it's kind of more simple, and it involves a lot of her learning how to do things and not doing everything perfectly and trying to figure things out in life. So yeah, she's very more, she looks more like a typical human being, which is cool.
Yeah. This video has been demonetized for... Actually, you weren't making any money on it in the first place. You're so small. Hey!
Frozen.
We're talking about Frozen. That's the only one that we have left.
Do more people need to talk about Frozen?
Yes. Actually, yes.
Yes, actually, they probably do.
Elsa is a terrible person. Anna's a great person. Frozen 2 was on drugs.
Okay, well, that
was good talk.
All
right. Nice talking to you guys. Well, that was really a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you really enjoyed the episode, please give it a like and please consider subscribing. But yeah, that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much. And I'm just kidding. We didn't actually do that. We actually talked about Frozen, but I wanted to see if I could get anybody with this fake outro. So let me just, rewind this cassette back real quick. Okay. Okay, we're good. Okay, Frozen. We got 2 female protagonists. That's new. We got the sister duo. And we both watched Frozen 1 and Frozen 2 all the way through. So I'm caught up. They're in my memory. They're good to go. I'm not winging it like Moana. First of all, there were some songs from the first Frozen that I thought were like just legit songs. And I couldn't remember what they were from just because they're so incorporated into the culture. And Frozen, I was like, oh, that's from Frozen? I forgot about that.
The first Disney movie where I was pretty sure that Disney started doing like mind control or something.
Yeah, I don't know what they did.
Took over the world.
Yeah.
For years, and it still kind of is. Like,
yeah,
it's just like
crazy.
A culture thing now, which, I mean, I don't really know how, but Disney marketing, whatever you're doing, don't stop.
They blew it up,
You're
man.
doing
They just they ate up our dollar bills.
But the actual storyline, what is it trying to say to the millions of people, billions of people watching it?
That's a good point, Christina. Let's start with the first one. Again, we got to make the quarantine connections, right?
Yeah.
Right? So, Elsa, she's just been self-isolating for
21 years?
Yeah, for a large portion of her life. I question her parents' decision to wipe Anna's memory.
Yeah.
Was that...
There's some plot things that don't necessarily make sense
to
me.
I don't know if her parents are great people. I think they're okay. They're not super relevant, though. The main point of this story is Anna and Elsa. Anna's got a little bit of the I'm kind of naive, kind of like Rapunzel. I've been stuck in here my whole life.
Doesn't have a lot of life experience.
Elsa's kind of
got major insecurity, major anxiety.
Yeah. Which, I mean, to be fair, you probably would experience a lot of that if you've kind of been stuck.
I feel like Elsa is kind of a it's difficult to say exactly what her situation and how it relates to like a real life scenario, but basically she has these amazing powers and these amazing abilities, which when she was younger she had so much fun using them to like play with her sister and like create amazing things. But her sister got hurt, and from then on, because of the way that her parents raised her, she's taught to be afraid of the abilities she has, and that causes her to lose control and kind of no longer know who she is. Like, she doesn't feel like she has any reason to be in society, and she's afraid of hurting people, so she doesn't let them into her life.
Which is actually kind of a fairly relatable thing.
So, yeah.
Like, being kind of afraid of not always necessarily who you are, but thinking about like a lot of people have a lot of baggage in their lives, and so whether it was something like abuse growing up, or like if your family was terrible, or even if you yourself just made stupid decisions and stuff like that, where you
don't want to bring that to anybody else, and you don't have an experience where people have reacted positively to who you are, so you kind of want to hide away, and you do want people, but you don't want people.
And I think that's kind of what Elsa has to learn, is sort of to embrace who she is,
and stop being afraid of other people, and realizing that she still is loved, and that she can accept it, and that Anna is kind of representative of someone who takes everybody in under her wing, even if
they're kind of opposites.
Even if it's not necessarily the most smart, cautious thing to do.
Disney has finally made up for all of their Snow Whites and their Sleeping Beauties. Hans, the man Anna falls in love with in literally like an hour, and she says yes to getting married. Turns out he's actually not a good dude.
Amazing.
What?
Wow, who would have saw that coming?
There you go.
And
young
Elsa,
people learn.
Despite her self-isolation, even knows without her lack of experience
she doesn't.
In the world, she's
like,
no,
what?
No,
what are you doing? And Anna immediately takes it as, wow, you're such a. Now, to be fair, Elsa didn't really set herself up for success by shutting Anna out, but still, like, Anna's just like, no, we're in love. We finish each other's sandwiches. Yeah. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah, I think.
What do you know of love, Elsa?
Again, I think this is showing two different parts of culture, especially I think when it comes to women, where there's either the women out there who just like love everybody and are always willing to get in this next new relationship without considering what that is doing to them, without being
they're just kind of they're riding the high without thinking about it.
Yeah, and they're not letting other people bring any like intelligent input into the decisions they're making, even though they mean well. They just might not see it. And then there's other people who are just completely unwilling to take risks in, meeting other people or interacting with other people because they've been hurt, or they're afraid of hurting other people with who they are or whatever. So there's kind of some pretty deep things there that I think maybe, I'm assuming somehow little kids see beyond the Disneyfication of it all, and they must see themselves somewhere in there.
I don't think a lot of young people would probably think like, oh, so this is how I deal with all my inner demons.
No.
I think it's one of those things where it kind of is like subconscious, and then as you grow up, you look back and you're like, oh, kind of like you talked about earlier with like Cinderella and your life and stuff.
Yeah. So I'm not quite sure because I was not like into this movie when it came out. Like I forget when this movie came out. I was in high school. But I think that a lot of older people especially seem to relate to the characters in there, like either feeling like they don't really belong to anybody or feeling like they just want to be like Anna, like they see themselves in Anna being like very like cheery, happy, chipper all the time. So I don't know. There's fun things and there's serious things.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting going back and watching again because I legit think I've only seen this movie all the way through twice, which is some miracle or something like that. I don't know. Maybe 3 times. I think twice though. And I remember it being the whole like at the end of the movie because Anna has the ice in her heart and stuff like that, where I remember it being that like Anna sacrifices herself to save Elsa from Hans, and I remember it being like Elsa's hugging Anna, and then that's what thaws her. And I went back and watched it again, and I was like, wait, no, that's not what happened. It was Anna literally saves herself, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Where it says, like, the whole premise is that Elsa shoots Anna in the heart with the ice or whatever, and only an act of love can thaw the frozen heart. Right? And so Anna immediately thinks, oh, okay, I gotta go kiss Hans, which again is playing with the old Disney of, yeah, Snow White was actually dumb. Like, your true love's kiss and stuff doesn't work when you just met the person like a day ago. So in the end, her act of love is being willing to sacrifice her own safety for Elsa.
Yeah.
But what I find is interesting is I feel like Elsa has the frozen heart, though.
Yeah,
and that's where it's confusing.
I mean, in terms of Anna, what I think she actually learns in this story that I think comes across is that she's constantly kind of looking outside of herself to kind of heal this brokenness within her own family. And she tries to look for that in romance, which I think is a very typical thing to do. Like if you had like a rotten family, you're trying to look for it in love, trying to find somebody outside of yourself to kind of heal that and be that for you. But she takes it back to the source with Elsa, and she continuously goes back to her and says that she's willing to make this right, which that is interesting. But yeah, Elsa, I think what Elsa actually doesn't save herself in this movie. She doesn't necessarily change, but she does change.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know if people change at all in the movie. I feel like they just realize things.
They come to a realization rather than a transformation, which is kind of a film theory plot, whatever thing. But yeah, what Elsa learns, I suppose, is that what she needed in life was not clinging to fear or being afraid of what people thought of her, but what she needed was love, and that was something she already had, I guess.
Part of it is she let fear consume her to the point where she refused to love her sister. Where it was interesting because in a sense she does love her sister, and that's why she's staying away.
Yeah.
But how she's staying away is controlled more by fear than it is by love.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think realizing that, like, once she lets go of the fear, then that's what ultimately, like, is able to heal their relationship, to thaw Elsa's heart, which is kind of the unspoken story, I guess, which is because it's like Elsa has to basically being willing to actually, like, give Anna, like, the love that she deserves as her sister. Like,
yeah, and that's kind of like the main themes of the movie. Kind of, I think what they're trying to give off is that there's more to life than a romantic love, for one, and then there's different personal struggles. But for me, I think my favorite character is probably Kristoff, because I feel like he's the one character that he changes in some ways and he doesn't change in others, but he is the one that kind of the whole time sort of does the right things or makes the right decisions. And I think that is, it's interesting the way that he does that, because he sees Anna at first and just kind of takes her for being a really, like, naive person, because he's more of the, like,
well, and she
realist.
is.
yeah, she is. And that's true. Like, they both have issues. But he's more of, like, the realist, doesn't really, like, believe in love, like, at all, kind of. And then he kind of, over the course of the movie, realizes that he does love Anna, but the way that he expresses his love isn't, like, in the traditional Disney romance way where they're, like, kissing all the time. He actually, like, shows it in his actions, which I think that's something too. A lot of this movie is about more than, like, words. It's a lot about, like, their actions in the end kind of define them. Like, the choices that they make are very important. Like, he chooses to bring her back to Hans, even though he's like, I actually like her, but she says she likes this other guy, so I'm gonna, like, support her in that. And, you know, in contrast to past Disney movies, he, like, at the end of the movie, he's, like, all, like, cute and awkward. He's like, I, like, want to kiss you, but, like, can I kiss you? Like, I don't know. Like, it's not like in other Disney movies where, like, oh, this unconscious person, let's just smooch it up.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
I like
he talks to reindeer. He's very relatable.
He's so relatably awkward.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kristoff, for existing.
And Anna's very awkward too. Which there's a lot of awkwardness.
I love all the awkwardness. It's so relatable.
It's very relatable. But yeah, it's different. I think it's one of those things where Disney was trying very hard to be different, so sometimes it's a little
They were trying to, like, almost mend the stereotypes, like, acknowledge, like, okay, guys, we get it, like. And
it makes for a very interesting plot, but I think it's a little bit more difficult to figure out exactly what they're trying to say necessarily, or.
I remember the first time I watched it kind of being like, what was the point? Like, and this one doesn't have a, like, it's not at all like Brave. Brave has one point, and its focus is entirely on that. This one, I think Frozen has a lot of just, like, small points that altogether kind of weave into, like, one big, like, deal with, like, identity and love, which is kind of like what most of these movies are about. But how does that continue into Frozen 2?
Frozen 2 is more kind of like, there is a lot of stuff going on between, like, Anna and Kristoff, but I feel like Frozen 2 is more about Elsa. I think they must have felt like there was maybe some plot holes maybe in the first one about, like, why Elsa has her powers and what do they mean and stuff like that. So this whole movie is about, part of it is about Elsa trying to figure out who she is. And even though it gets kind of maybe lost in the plot, and it's not like the most relatable, like, people don't...
Yeah, Frozen 2 is weird.
Frozen 2 is very unusual in that aspect. Elsa's journey, I just don't think is the most relatable thing to little kids, because you're not going to realize that you're like a snow goddess, essentially. Like,
if you're watching, Mom, I'm a snow goddess, I just realized. Like,
I think a lot of her problems were that she just didn't know why she had these certain abilities, or like
I
what
think
it was all for. I think she was kind of like trying to find her place in the world.
I think it's kind of an extension of the first, where in the first movie it's like letting go of the fear and showing the love, and now it's kind of like, okay, well, what now? Like, that's sort of what it is for Elsa. I feel like, where
she learns how to like use her powers and figure out where she belongs. The story between Anna and Elsa, and then Anna and Kristoff, I think it's much more relatable to real life, because Anna's whole thing is that she's desperately afraid of Elsa getting hurt again. So she wants Elsa to let her help her the whole time. And Elsa, I guess, kind of struggles with that too, between the not wanting to ruin their relationship but not wanting Anna to get hurt. Yeah,
it's almost like showing the sort of the effects of what happens after the first one, because the first one is like, okay, this is going to be the new deal going forward. Like, I'm going to show you the love you need as a sister and try and not let the fear control me. But now it's like, actually, like, practically speaking, like, Elsa really feels strongly that she needs to know who she is, and to do that would probably put Anna in danger. So now they're right back to where they were before. But
yeah, and I think another part of this movie too is that, like, Kristoff is trying to like propose to Anna, but
the whole time.
Like the whole time. But she keeps kind of misunderstanding him. I think kind of she has a lot of this anxiety that kind of is drifting over to all sorts of areas of her life. And so she kind of has to learn how to pay attention to both things that are going on. But Kristoff, I really like how Kristoff is in this movie, because he's always looking out for Anna and for her interests, and he's like a very selfless person in all of it. Like, I think maybe Disney might have felt like all of the past princes were just like these really like self-confident people that knew exactly what they were doing, or like were very outspoken, or maybe they were, I don't know. He's a little bit less outspoken, but he's a good person.
I like Kristoff a lot.
But let's be real here. The real star of both of these movies is Olaf. Okay? That's what these movies are truly about. Yes, it's Frozen all about Olaf.
It's about Olaf.
If you're going to learn anything about love, it's from Olaf.
Do tell, Christina. How do we learn from love about
So, in the first movie, Olaf is honestly the true hero, because he is there to support Anna the whole way on her journey. And when she is dying in a room, and Hans like leaves her for dead, he sticks with her even though it means that he's going to melt. And he's just like so happy about the world, and like loves everybody super well, and he's so enthusiastic and funny. But yeah, he really,
I feel like him and Kristoff are fairly similar.
Yeah,
honestly.
and then
I think Kristoff, the only like in their love for others, I think Kristoff is a bit more like a realist, and Olaf is very like optimistic. He's very optimistic, and he's again looking out for other people. Where I feel like maybe
Elsa and Anna always kind of have like their own agenda and they know exactly what they're doing all the time, where Olaf is actually just there to help other people, like, very selflessly. And then in the
second one,
movie,
he's interesting.
He's kind of, I guess you could say, he's growing up and he's trying to understand, like, there's all these changes going on around him and there's dark things that happen to both him and Anna, where it's like, how do you deal with bad things happening, and how do you deal with life when it's not super happy all the time? And the one big thing that I really liked in the Frozen 2 is they always talk about doing the next right thing, which I think is super helpful, and I think it kind of recognizes the fact that kids do deal with situations that involve grief, or like they might have anxiety or depression or like something very serious. It talks a lot more, I think, about like maybe mental illness or like your state of mind or how you handle situations that just feel too big, because there's a lot of situations when you're little that just feel too big for you, and you might not know how to, you might not even know how to describe it to an adult person or ask for help in these situations. So this is kind of like giving awareness to the fact that there are things in life that are really difficult to deal with, and kind of giving people a little bit of a framework with how to deal with them, like doing the next right thing, like just getting to the next point and the next point, and not, I don't know.
Some people are watching Frozen 2 where I was staying for college, and that was the scene I walked into, was like right when like Olaf is fading away and then Anna's on her own, like in this dark cave, and I was like, oh, this is really sad. Like this is like, wow, this is in this movie. And then I watched the rest of the movie, I'm like, what is going on? But that scene in particular, the Anna's, you know, kind of rising off the ground and things are really awful. Like her sister, she thinks is dead. Olaf is gone. Like those two things on their own are just like terrible things to be dealing with. But she knows that she still needs to like remedy the situation of what's going on. She still has a
purpose in life, even though everything feels really overwhelming and she kind of feels alone. So and
I don't think it's when it says to do the next right thing, I don't think it's saying just ignore like everything that's going on. It's more of a like, this hurts, but like you do need to still keep moving. Like not to forget or to ignore, but
keep moving forward and not letting the bad dark things in life become the thing that define you, like being brave and so, and I don't think it's like the perfect, maybe the most perfect thing, but it is something that I think is different than other past Disney movies. That's very
Frozen for sure gets props for not being like the other Disney movies or princess movies, but also the part where Olaf narrates in charades the entire plot of the first movie. I honestly have not laughed that hard in a very long time. I was just doing the old like I can't breathe laugh where just it was so funny. I was laughing so hard. It was really good. But like I said, Frozen is good for being different. I still struggle with it because I don't feel like I'm the kind of guy where I appreciate flawed characters learning lessons and growing from them. I struggle with Frozen because people don't really change at all in Frozen. And I think that's fine. That's not the point of the movie. It's harder for me to enjoy or to have the points more clear when people don't necessarily change. It's more of just learning more about themselves, I guess.
Yeah, that's a interesting thing about them, definitely. I do, especially for a kids movie, I think it maybe is a little bit more helpful when what they're trying to say comes across more clearly.
Yeah, that's what I do worry a little bit about with Frozen, is because I think you'll see, like, for sure the first movie when Anna and Elsa in, like, the act of love thaws Anna. Like, I think kids can look at that and be like, oh, like, that's what love looks like or whatever for my siblings. But then all the other things of, like, Elsa shutting Anna out, like, maybe like you probably have some things to relate to, but then other more subtle things of just like the type of people you fall in love with, or Kristoff's character. I wonder if those are, because they're not necessarily in the spotlight, I wonder if some of those things are missed in just like the fun adventure, you know.
We're kind of living in a time with movies where it seems like people are trying so hard to break things that have become like a cliche or anything like that, or making things like almost a little bit too broad with what they're talking about, that it just isn't quite as powerful as it could be for some movies.
In general, I think if you have a point to make in a movie, either make it like super strong and obvious, like you can do that in different ways, as far as making it simple and just focusing on it, like in Brave, or really stressing it hard, like in The Princess and the Frog, or something like that. You could also maybe look at having a very strong point, but making it super subtle, where you have to take the whole movie, look at it from start to finish, and pick up on things along the way to realize, oh, this is what it's actually trying to say. But I'm worried that with Frozen and Frozen 2, it's kind of like, let's throw some of that in there and over there, and how about a little bit over here, you know? And it's not bad. I think it's just not as powerful.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me, especially the second one, of like Onward, the Pixar movie that came out, where there was a pretty clear like basic idea about two brothers and like how important brotherhood is, but it, like, if you actually start talking about it out loud, it's kind of like this weird thing where it's like his dad was no longer like important to the story, and like all he needed was his brother, but which sounds good in theory, but also trying to figure out how that like applies to kids sometimes would be kind of an interesting situation, where it's like
Onward would be an interesting one to talk about for sure.
And I feel like I've seen that a lot in more recent movies, where they might be trying so hard to come up with a plot that's different, or trying to focus on different things in life, that they kind of might not make it like as relatable to kids, or make the
I mean Onward is a weird scenario. I mean, this is not Disney Princess movie.
No.
So I don't want to talk about it.
I was just trying to find some.
But like, where it's it's so fantastic and different and quirky, and I actually really I saw Onward once, and I kind of like it, and I like the fact that like he gives up his time to his older brother, and he gave him the chance to say goodbye or whatever, even if it, you could still look at the different relationships and stuff. But anyway, that's different. Different topic for a different time.
Yeah, Disney princess movies, some of them are great, some of them are not so great. Use discretion.
Do we want to say our favorite movies or our favorite princesses?
maybe,
which would be more helpful.
if we're going to be looking at what the point of a movie is, probably favorite princess, because I think that's what kids really, I don't know. People identify with the specific person.
Basically, are we talking about the whole movie and all the messages, or just specifically picking the best role models?
Yeah, I would say best role models.
Okay, we'll do that. The best role models from the Disney princesses, specifically. So,
yes.
Sorry, you young dudes. I'm assuming you don't want to be a princess when you grow up.
I don't know.
Who knows? 3 best, 3 worst.
Sure.
Okay. In no particular order, or maybe in order. I don't know. I can't. I didn't think this ahead though. I'm gonna do worst. I have to have all of the things pulled up so that way I can actually remind myself what's going on. I'd say Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, although honestly I don't know if they really have enough personality for it to even count. Like, I don't know who would want them as a role model. And then The Little Mermaid is probably the worst role model.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, I don't think there's really much of a argument there for worst role model.
Ariel is a terrible person.
Ariel is clearly a terrible role model for children, and I feel like all of the other ones might, aside from Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, like you said, they just don't really have enough personality for you to know, like, if they're a good or bad role model. Yeah. And the rest of them have more redeeming qualities. So.
Yeah, like, I mean, you know, we talked about Jasmine has flaws, but she's got good things too. She's got
some redeeming qualities that are...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more interesting one is, what are the best role models?
Yeah.
So we're in agreement about the worst.
Yes.
Okay. The best ones, though.
Best ones, well, I think Tiana's on the top when it comes to just, like, a singular role model.
Okay, so Tiana is number 1 and for you.
Mm-hmm. For me, Tiana, and then I think that it's kind of difficult past that because there's people that I feel like I like their personality.
Yeah, that's where I'm struggling.
Because, like, I love Belle's personality, and, like, I love that she likes books and things, and that she has such a kind heart. But in terms of, like, maybe an actual role model for kids, I would probably more say, like, Moana, who I felt was, like, maybe more of a relatable character person. So yeah, like, in terms of relatability, maybe Moana. In terms of, like, the best role model, probably Tiana. And then maybe in terms of just, like, an all-out favorite princess, probably Rapunzel.
Yeah, I'm actually really struggling. This is the hardest thing
Mulan.
I've had.
Mulan's
This is the hardest thing I've had to do in my entire life.
Yeah. I would have to say Mulan is somewhere up there.
So, watching The Princess and the Frog, I would have to agree that Tiana is probably the best role model of, like, someone you want your, like, daughter to grow up to be. To be like. After that, I would probably say... This is so hard.
This is going to change your life.
I think it has to be Mulan after that, because, once again, like, Mulan and Princess and the Frog, I think, are basically, like, perfect.
Yeah.
Like, and as far as role models go, like, Mulan and Tiana both have a just really great sense of love and self-sacrifice, and still learning a couple things. You know, they're not perfect, but they're just really good role models. And then I had to pick one more. I didn't see Moana enough to know, so I'm not gonna say that. That helps. I don't have to. I'm too ignorant to know. I don't know. I'm just gonna give it the old 4-way tie. So in terms of just which one do I like the most, I love Rapunzel. I think she's just a super fun person.
No, I thought you loved Merida.
Merida is freaking hot, but No, I'm kidding.
Do we need to have a podcast dedicated to that?
No. No, Merida is actually really cool. I do like, I like her outdoorsy stuff. I think Rapunzel, I don't like Rapunzel necessarily at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I think after she's learned everything.
Yeah.
Where she has this great balance of, she loves, like, she's a creative person. Mm-hmm. Like, she loves
like, I like her personality. I just don't know if she would be the best role model until, like,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think her role model at the end is probably a good one to go for, because, like, expressing your creativity is a great thing to be doing. She's already doing that throughout the whole thing. And then being willing to having a good outlook on the world, right? Of having a positive outlook is really helpful. Although then she finally has now Flynn with her to kind of balance out the like the cynical, like. So basically, I think just being a creative person with a positive outlook, I think, is a good role model.
Yeah, we're just gonna say Eugene Fitzherbert and Rapunzel are like the best couple, of course, naturally.
Yeah, I think we can go with that. I think I'm okay with that. Best duo.
Yeah. They
win. But yeah, no, Merida, I really love, like, it's weird how, like, it's hard to find the balance of, like, do they just have a cool personality, or are they actually, like, good people? Mm-hmm. Like, Merida, I think, is still just really young, and so she's probably learning a lot of things, where I think she's a great role model in the sense of, like, starting, like, off, like, hey, you know, go outside and go explore, and also, like, love your family. Like, okay, yeah, I can get behind that. And then, like, Anna, I think, is a really good role model of loving your siblings and also, like, still loving them after they've hurt you. Like, not in a, like, just keel over and, like, you know, let bad things happen, but like Anna basically has to put aside, like, the pain that Elsa caused her earlier in her life and still move forward and build a new relationship, kind of. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Belle, go read books. Yeah. I actually really like Belle. I think she's, like you said, she's a kind person.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so much more here that can go into, like, what they actually look like, their interest in the movie, and then, like, their singing voice. That plays a big thing in, like, how much.
Yeah, you said Belle has a really good voice.
Belle has an amazing singing voice, so.
Brave, I thought, was interesting. There's only, like, one song that she sings in the whole movie.
Yeah.
That was different. I don't remember what it was about. Something about go explore.
Stay tuned to hear Kurt's announcement and how he's starring in the next Disney Princess film. What is it called again?
Olaf's Big Break 3.
He plays a snowman. Yep, Check it out.
I play Olaf's
coming to a VHS tape near you.
I play Olaf's great grandson. No, that's not happening. It's weird to think about, like, going through and being like, yeah, I really liked that movie, and then others are like, yeah, this movie's dumb. Like, even for me as, like, a 20-year-old dude, to still, and I admit I'm a bit quirky, but like, all right, guys, that was a pretty good movie. You should go check that one out. Like, and I just love, you know, in general, a lot of children's audience, like, art or media, just because a lot of times messages are kind of, like, simple and sweet, and I think that's cool. So I don't really know what else to say.
If you're a princess in quarantine, comment below.
We're all princesses in quarantine. Well, I'm a prince, but you know. Yeah, I will put down in the description below a list of everything Rapunzel does during quarantine, just so we can all feel very
inadequate.
Yeah.
Kurt's making... Actually, that's the movie you're starring in. Kurt's version of Rapunzel.
Oh, it'd just be the same movie. I love Tangled. Oh, that's a good movie.
No, you're like.
Oh, okay.
You're in your room.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, though.
Kurt never left the tower.
I self-quarantined for 2 weeks and had Rapunzel beat me in about 3 hours in productivity, I think. I did record a few podcasts. I did that. You know, I did a couple things. Although, let's be real. How does she walk anywhere with that much hair on? Do you know how much that hair must weigh?
I don't know. She's also barefoot. Remember how she, like, falls?
Yeah.
She's in, like, a river and somehow she manages to get out without drowning because of the weight of her hair?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
To me.
We're not going to talk about plot holes because there's a lot of those.
Yeah, we could.
Some of those.
Spend all day. And
we could also talk about, Frozen 2. 100% they were on drugs when they made it because nothing in that movie makes any sense. Yeah. It's all just, there's so many fever dreams going on.
Definitely. Kristoff and the reindeer just
I don't know what's going on.
I
don't know. Or it's all Elsa's dream. That's another theory.
Go out there and be a Mulan today. Do not let people kiss you while you are sleeping because that's not okay.
What did we learn today, Christina?
That's what we learned. And
actually, you know what? Here's what we're gonna end off with because we need it. Because we're just gonna keep talking. Like Tiana's dad said, this is what it comes down to. You wish and you dream with all your heart, but remember, that old star can only take you part of the way. You got to help it with some hard work of your own. And then you, that's right, you listening to this, even you, Christina, even, oh, God forbid, even me. And then you can do anything you set your mind to, except for, like, bad things. Don't do those. But, yeah. Way to go, Tiana's dad. I feel bad because I don't know his name. Actually, wait, does it say right there? His name is James. Way to go, James. Could have said it better myself. Farewell, everyone. Say bye, Christina.
Bye, Christina.
Okay. That's not what... Okay. Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening. I really enjoyed this episode. I had a lot of fun. I'm also somewhat surprised. I feel like I learned a lot. I'm not actually that surprised. There's a reason why I wanted to record this episode in the first place, because I figured there actually were a lot of really interesting messages you could unpack from these movies, but it was just cool to do the research and then kind of think analytically about movies that, a lot of people just grew up with in their childhood and stuff like that, and to realize, what were they actually trying to say to me when I was younger and things like that. So I really enjoyed it. Hopefully you did too. A few quick, minor apologies, I suppose, something like that. First of all, every now and then, especially if you had headphones on, you may have heard a thump. I tried to mute it a little bit so it wasn't as apparent, but that was me putting my water bottle on the table that the microphone was on, which I didn't realize it was making a noise. Also, I tended to notice listening back that I feel like I interrupted Christina a decent chunk before she was actually done with her train of thought, and so sometimes the direction I went in was not the direction she was going in. So it's all good. It worked out in the end, but my bad, Christina. I guess I was trying too hard to, finish each other's sandwiches or whatever, something like that. And then also, the last 5 minutes of this episode, we finished recording this past midnight, and so right at the very end, I think we might have started to go a little bit loopy. I even had to cut some of it because it was getting nonsensical. So hopefully you guys toughed it all out and you enjoyed it. If you like this kind of stuff, please give it a like and please consider subscribing. I do this every week on Wednesday afternoon, or at least that's when it's released anyhow. So yeah, if you want to join in every week, please consider subscribing. If you found anything particularly interesting or just you have any other kind of comment, please leave it in the comments down below. I have yet to record next week's episode, so it's a surprise for all of us. I don't really have any tune in next time for you because I don't know what it's going to be next time. So you'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful day.